Chapter 4198. Soon, the large number of survivors and experts who had remained outside the atmosphere of Mulberry G star all entered the interior of the planet within the atmosphere and began closed-door cultivation to break through. Yi Xian had just completed a breakthrough, and still needed 1 or 2 hardy battles to stabilize his current realm. Therefore, he had no intention of continuing to cultivate and seek a breakthrough. The reason he was sitting in the cosmic void outside the atmosphere of Mulberry G star was partly to prevent the powerful army of ferocious beasts from the surrounding void from coming to disturb him. On the other hand, it was to prevent the allied forces of various races and rogue cultivators from the 3 main planes of the starry skies from passing through the light curtain and entering Mulberry G star directly from the dark, black hole-like void where he had come from. Although the dark void that was like a black hole was vast, it could be said to be boundless. And it was like this in all directions. Under such circumstances, the fleets of the 3 major starry skies that entered the dark void after him might not be able to find Yu Yi. At this time, Xian Lai had passed through the same light curtain. However, this was more or less a possibility. He had to be on guard. However, he could not afford to waste this 1 month. Although he did not intend to cultivate, Yi Xian could use it to deduce the ancient demon ape bloodline ability, which was the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. Up until now, he had already comprehended the 5th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. However, this was something that happened a long time ago. Although the further he progressed, the more complicated the derivation of each transformation would be, and the time required would also increase. However, the devouring system in his body had begun to deduce the 6th transformation of the demonic ape after completing the 5th transformation. According to Yi Xian's estimation, the mysteries of the 6th transformation should be deduced soon. Even if there was still a gap, as long as he settled his mind and began to deduce with the devouring system in his body, it should not be a problem for him to successfully deduce the 6th transformation of the devil ape before the start of the expedition in a month's time. After adjusting his state of mind, Yi Xian quickly calmed down and retrieved all kinds of data and information related to the 6th transformation of the devil ape from the devouring system in his body. He spent an entire 2 days to study it thoroughly, and then began the follow-up derivation with the devouring system in his body. When it came to data calculation and derivation, although he was still far inferior to the devouring system in his body, after all, the current Yi Xian was already an immortal old monster. His divine sense was so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. With his assistance, the devouring system's derivation of the 6th transformation of the devil ape was completed in an instant. There was a huge improvement. Just like that, another dozen or so days passed before the systematic derivation of the core profundity of the 6th form of the devil ape was finally completed. At this moment, Yi Xian was overjoyed. Hearing the familiar system beep in his mind, he was in high spirits. He did not feel tired at all after 20 days of continuous derivation. Before this, the strength of his original body was at level 4 immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demonic ape with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again, directly reaching level 5 immortal realm. If he performed the 9 demonic ape transformations and reached the 5th transformation, he would instantly reach level 1 Marquis immortal realm. But now Yi Xian had already deduced the core profundity of the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape, and completely mastered it. As long as he wanted to, he could activate the real body of the devil ape with 3 heads and 6 arms at any time. After entering the 6th transformation, not only would his body reach an unprecedented height of 10 million meters, which was 30 million meters or 60,000 miles, which was comparable to a supergiant planet, but his strength would also soar again, reaching level 2 Marquis immortal realm. If one were to include the terrifying chi and blood energy contained within this terrifying star body that was 60,000 kilometers long, even if one didn't use the fallen sky bow and other supreme divine abilities and powerful treasures like the Shinong cauldron, Yi Xian's true combat strength would still be able to reach the 6th or 7th level of the Marquis immortal realm, which was equivalent to an old monster at the late stage of this realm. The extent of this battle. I finally comprehended the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations bloodline. Roar! Yi Xian forcefully activated the true body of the 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape, and directly entered the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the devil ape. Feeling the impulse of possessing the terrifying vitality of a 60,000-kilometer body, Yi Xian stood up from the mouth of the Shenong cauldron that was filled with a 9-colored mist. At this moment, his chest was filled with boundless pride. This was because he had ordered the devouring system in his body to start deducing the core profundity of the 7th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, as soon as the derivation of the core profundity of the 6th transformation was completed. It was as if he could already see himself comprehending the 7th transformation, the 8th transformation, and even the ultimate 9th transformation. Right now, he was only at the 6th transformation, but his devil ape true body could already reach 60,000 miles in size, which was comparable to a superstar. As for the 7th, 8th, and 9th transformations, not only would each of them elevate his cultivation base by a minor stage, even the size of the devilish ape true body would increase by 10 times if there were no unforeseen circumstances. If that was really the case, the demonic ape size in the 9th change might not be comparable to the void behemoth tortoise at its peak, but it wouldn't be too far off even if it were to raise its claws. When he thought of the day when he would also be able to transform and become as large as a small part of the starry sky, Yi Xian's heart inexplicably throbbed with an indescribable feeling. For a long time, the void tortoise, whose body was so terrifying that a single claw was comparable to that of a star field, had always been the object of envy in his heart. But now, he finally saw the hope of possessing such a tyrannical body in the near future. How could he not be excited? Calculating the time, it had been 19 days since Yi Xian had started to deduce the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations with the devouring system in his body. In other words, in the next 11 days, Yi Xian would officially begin his conquest of the starry sky forbidden zones around Mulberry Star. With anticipation, he quickly calmed down his excited mood. His figure flashed, and he once again returned to the mouth of the farmer god cauldron that was shrouded in 9-colored fog. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. In this last bit of time, Yi Xian did not intend to cultivate, nor did he intend to continue to deduce the core mysteries of the 7th transformation of the devil ape true body. It was still too early. In just 11 days there would be no results. What he needed to do was to simply regulate his breathing. He needed to use these 11 days to completely calm down his emotions. Chapter 4199. Hiss. Hiss hiss. The 1-month deadline was up. Yi Xian opened his eyes, waved his hand, and put the farmer god cauldron into his undying world. His figure shot out, and just as he arrived outside the atmosphere of Sangji Star, he heard a series of excited and fierce roars coming from the interior of Sangji Star within the atmosphere. Obviously, the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era in the 12 great tribes and thousands of villages of various sizes on Sangji Star had all broken out of seclusion. This included Gue Hai Dao, Song Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon scouts who were also in seclusion to break through. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks and did not enter the atmosphere of Sangji Star again. He still waited in the void 1,000,000 kilometers outside the atmosphere. Soon small teams of demon dweller scouts entered the interior of Mulberry Star to find a place to cultivate and break through. They passed through the atmosphere of Mulberry Star one after another and arrived in the void outside the atmosphere. There was no need to say anything, nor was there any chaos. After the demon scouts arrived and saw Yi Xian standing in the void 1,000,000 kilometers away, they immediately began to organize themselves in the void outside the atmosphere of Sangji Star in an orderly manner. During this process, Yi Xian's gaze swept across the demon scouts who arrived one after another. Sensing the cultivation aura emanating from their bodies, a deep gratified smile immediately appeared on his face. Although a month's time was not long, for these 20,000 demon scouts who were originally well prepared, it was actually not a short period of time for them to enter seclusion for such a long time. In addition to the super strong effects of the light golden top-grade flesh medicine they had obtained, over the past month, the cultivation base and strength of the more than 20,000 demon experts had been greatly improved. As far as the eye could see, all the demon scouts were now at the 15th great realm of the starry sky, which was the existence above the universe realm. This was a powerful battle team formed by 20,000 almighty beings of the universe. Because they were extremely familiar with each other, their tacit understanding was even perfect. Once all of them went out to battle and entered the battlefield, the battle strength formed would definitely increase by several levels. Among the 20,000 demon cultivators above the universe realm, There were over 100 Star Lords and over 10 Domain Lords. These dozen or so domain masters included Ing Tai, Gue Hai Dao, Song Qingyu, Nebashan, Ba Chai, Li Mosquito, Zuofeng Tai, and the others. They were all demon experts who had followed Yi Xian since the beginning. And now, because of this opportunity, they had all become domain masters. He believed that in the near future, among these 20,000 demon dweller scouts whose cultivation had all surpassed the universe realm, there would definitely be more and more Star Lord old monsters and Domain Lord old monsters. Among them, Guohai Dao, Song Qingyu, and the others were already the cream of the crop amongst the Domain Lords. Soon they would most likely break through to the Sector Lord realm or even the Universe realm. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, the expression on Yi Xian's face couldn't help but become excited once again. When he thought about how one day in the future, he would have an army of 20,000 Star Lords, Domain Lords, Realm Lords, and even Universe Lords, Yi Xian would have an army of 20,000 Star Lords. It was a feeling of blood boiling. All of this would probably be very difficult to achieve in a short time in the three main planes of the universe. However, here there was a huge amount of ferocious beast materials, as well as the top-grade flesh medicine refined by the primordial survivors using alchemy techniques. Everything was possible. Rumble. Rumble. Just as Yi Xian was lost in thought, the atmosphere of Sangji Star in front of him surged. Battleships flew out from the interior of the star one after another. There were all kinds of shapes and sizes forming a large black mass. This time, the tens of millions of ancient survivors on Sangji Star were all mobilized. Although some of the survivors of the primordial era were not combatants, and there were even some elderly, women, and children among them, there was no doubt that all of them had entered the battleships of various sizes. Even the resources and personal belongings of the strongholds had all been taken care of. They carried everything with them. This was completely a rhythm that didn't matter even if they didn't come back after going out on an expedition. Actually, this was very normal. The few tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree had been trapped within the various restricted areas in the surroundings, and they'd been trapped within this expanse of space for countless years. Now that they had submitted to such a powerful master like Yi Xian, there was no doubt that he had the strength to lead them out. Since this was the case, naturally no one was willing to stay here any longer. However, Yi Xian didn't think that way. It was impossible for him to sweep through all of the forbidden areas in the surrounding space at once, so he could only exterminate them one by one. Since that was the case after the battle, he would definitely need to return to rest and digest what he had obtained. Thus, the significance of Mulberry Star as a base for the rear wouldn't completely disappear in a short time. However, for the first expedition, for safety reasons, it was good to bring all the non-combatants along. This was to prevent these fellows from worrying about their clansmen on Mulberry Star, while they were fighting at the front. What surprised Yi Xian was that as the tens of millions of primordial survivors rushed out of Mulberry Star, the dozen or so Realm Lord old freaks quickly swarmed over and gathered in front of Yi Xian. In just a month, these fellows had all broken through from the Realm Lord grade to the Universe grade and were all old freaks of the universe. In fact, they were not the only universe monsters like this. There were more than 40 universe monsters on Sangji planet. There were even more Realm Lords, Domain Lords, and Star Lords below the universe grade. In general, the emergence of powerhouses among the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Star had been like a geyser. This was clearly the result of their many years of accumulation. My first target for this expedition is to the northwest of Mulberry Star. This forbidden space is more than 70 million miles away from Mulberry Star. When all the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Star had arrived and gathered outside the star's atmosphere, Yi Xian scanned the surroundings. Following which, he confirmed the target of the first expedition. There were originally 4 sempiternal realm ferocious beasts in this forbidden space. However, 2 of them led an army of 1 million ferocious beasts to invade this place a month ago, and all of them were annihilated. Right now, there are still 2 immortal grade beasts in this forbidden space. In addition, there are about 10 million beasts below the immortal grade. Chapter 4200. Rumble. Boom. With Yi Xian's order, the giant fortress of life on the Wild Dragon battleship that was as large as a planet opened up one floor in an instant. The entire life fortress had a total of more than 10 levels, and the space inside was too vast. However, right now, Yi Xian had only opened up one of the levels, which was located in the middle. Just these 3 levels were enough to accommodate the various types of battleships that the tens of millions of primordial-era survivors were controlling. It took half a day for all the battleships to enter the giant fortress of life. Gui Hai Dao, Song Qingyu, and the 20,000 demon scouts had already entered the giant fortress of life. Whoosh! When everything was ready, Yi Xian entered the core command cabin of the Wild Dragon battleship in a flash. With the order given, the giant fortress of life as large as a planet opened up its kinetic energy cabin and turned into a ray of light that shot toward its destination several thousand miles northwest of the Mulberry battleship and left. More than 70 million miles northwest of the Mulberry battleship, there used to be 4 immortal realm ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of stars. However, 2 of them had led an army of 1 million ferocious beasts to the Mulberry battleship a month ago and died in the Mulberry battleship. Now there were only 2 immortal realm ferocious beasts left in the forbidden land of stars. In addition, there were nearly 10 million ferocious beasts below the immortal realm. The 2 immortal realm ferocious beasts were both at the middle stage of the immortal realm. One was at the 4th stage of the immortal realm, while the other was at the 6th stage of the immortal realm. Once Yi Xian activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations, he would be able to destroy them with just 2 punches. Even if he asked the flying centipede and old monster Silverpole to attack, they would be able to end the battle in a short time. After a month of cultivation, the flying centipede had reached the 8th stage of the immortal realm. Even old monster Silverpole had reached the 3rd stage of the immortal realm. If the 2 of them worked together, they would be able to easily crush the 2 ferocious beasts. In fact, the ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of stars, including the 2 immortal realm ferocious beasts, were having a hard time. To be more precise, it was the same for all the ferocious beasts in the 6 forbidden zones around Mulberry Tree. A month ago, the sea of space beasts within these 6 forbidden lands all felt a powerful energy that made them tremble. It belonged to an official level undying, and it clearly dispersed from the center of these forbidden lands. This was also something that Yi Xian had done on purpose. He didn't want some ferocious beasts from the surrounding forbidden lands to come and cause trouble during this 1 month of seclusion. His purpose was only to deter this group of fellows, but in fact the effect of the intimidation was absolutely amazing. It was to the extent that among the countless ferocious beasts in the 6 forbidden areas of the starry sky, even those powerful ferocious beasts at the immortal realm were terrified all day long. Especially the forbidden area in the northwest. Not only were there only 2 undying beasts left, their strength was greatly reduced. A month ago they even sent out an army of 1 million beasts, led by 2 undying beasts, heading towards the source of the official level undying energy. This remnant star was rushing towards them. They didn't understand why the remnant star, which had always been weak, suddenly had the terrifying aura of an official level undying, but it was too late now. These 2 undying beasts didn't think of escaping. But on one hand, the enemy hadn't attacked yet, and they weren't willing to give up their nest. On the other hand, in the distant void behind them, there was another even more powerful forbidden area. Even if they escaped, they couldn't break through it. In the end, they were still trapped in this void. Because of this, these 2 undying beasts gritted their teeth and braced themselves to stay. They secretly prayed that the official level undying wouldn't come. But all of this was just wishful thinking. For the Longyi battleship, it would only take the time of a cup of tea to cross the distance of 70 million miles in space. Due to the Wild Dragon ship arriving too quickly, the 2 immortal rank beasts in the forbidden space in the northwest corner of Mulberry G-Star couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Hung long long. All battleships move out. Kill without mercy. As the huge kinetic energy cabin roared, the Wild Dragon Star Fortress arrived in this corner of the void and hovered above this forbidden space. Immediately after, following Yi Xian's light shout, all of the enormous cabin doors on the level that contained the million battleships of Mulberry Tree instantly opened. One after another, starry sky battleships of all shapes and sizes rumbled out, directly charging towards the forbidden area of the starry sky below. In addition, the 2 demon scout troops led by Gui Hai Dao and Song Qingyu also arrived by crossing the void with their bodies. These 2 groups of 10,000 demon dweller scouts did not split up. After all, the individual combat strength of the demon dweller scouts was not very strong. If they were to split up and fight separately, the losses would obviously be extremely great. These were all the forces under his command. Yixian wasn't willing to accept the fall of any of the demon cultivator scouts. In this battle, the two groups of 10,000 demon scouts were gathered together, forming a powerful star battle formation. They cooperated with each other, twisting their strength together and pouncing towards the forbidden land of stars below. Hong long long. Hong! This corner of the universe, which was originally quite peaceful, was boiling in an instant. Roars and roars resounded throughout the entire vast void. This forbidden area was located in the northwest corner of Mulberry G star. It was actually a cosmic void like any other place. In this area, there were more than a dozen life-bearing planets crowded together in a void that was tens of millions of kilometers in circumference. All kinds of ferocious space beasts lived on these dozen life planets. They helped each other and formed a large regional force. That was why this forbidden area of the starry sky was formed. Today, the army of 1,000,000 battleships from Mulberry G star and the two demon scout squads led by Gui Hai Dao and Song Qingyu respectively charged towards the dozen or so planets full of space beasts. The war began like a raging fire from the very beginning. Roar! Yixian also charged out of the life fortress at the first moment. He directly activated the demonic ape bloodline and entered the fifth transformation of the demonic ape. A terrifying ape that was more than 1,000,000 zhang tall appeared in the void. Chapter 4201. With one punch, he destroyed a powerful immortal realm ferocious beast in an instant. This powerful immortal realm ferocious beast had just shot up into the sky from one of the more than a dozen life stars. No one knew whether it wanted to escape immediately or rush out to fight to the death. But all of this was no longer important, because it had been completely turned into one by Yixian's punch. A bloody mist spread out in the void. At this moment, the entire void of the universe fell into a strange silence. Whether it was the tens of millions of ferocious beasts in this forbidden land of the starry sky, the tens of millions of survivors in the millions of battleships that had just rushed out of the Longye Star Fortress, or the scouts led by Gui Hai Dao and Song Qingyu 20000 Demon Dweller scouts, everyone, without exception, sucked in a cold breath. They didn't even get a good look at the appearance of this immortal realm ferocious beast commander, and what kind of bloodline it had. Everything was over so quickly. This was an instant kill. No, even an instant kill was not enough to describe it. Everything happened so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Roar! On this side, this powerful immortal realm ferocious beast, that they couldn't even see clearly, had just been smashed into a bloody mist by Yixian from 1,000,000 miles away. The bloody mist quickly spread out in the void. On another life star more than 1,000,000 miles away, another ferocious beast with an astonishing aura roared out in an instant. This was another powerful immortal realm ferocious beast, and it was the most powerful one among them. It was at level 6 of the immortal realm, which was the peak of the middle stage of the immortal realm. With one more small stage, it would enter the late stage of the immortal realm. At this moment, this powerful level 6 of the immortal realm ferocious beast let out an earth-shattering roar, which clearly revealed its monstrous anger and madness. There were only two powerful immortal realm ferocious beasts left in this forbidden land of the starry sky. One of them was killed in the blink of an eye. Now it was the only one left. Moreover, with the opponent's terrifying strength, it obviously wouldn't be able to hold on for long and would be destroyed soon. It was very likely that the result would be the same. Instant kill. After all, the strength displayed by the three-headed and six-armed primordial ape demons had clearly reached the marquee realm of the immortal realm. With his cultivation at the middle stage of the immortal realm, it was impossible for him to resist it. It was certain that he would be killed easily. Because of this, knowing that he was going to die, this powerful ferocious beast at the peak of the middle stage of the immortal realm completely threw all caution to the wind. Its ferocious nature was aroused. Since it was going to die anyway, it might as well grit its teeth and fight. Maybe it could even injure its opponent a little. With this kind of decisiveness, the middle stage of the immortal stage ferocious beast didn't charge out of the life planet after letting out this furious roar. Instead, it directly teleported and locked onto Yixian's location. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of him. This was a giant earth bear with a body of about 100,000 feet. Its fur was bluish-gray and emitted a faint bloody aura. At first glance, one could tell that it was an extremely violent existence. In fact, this was indeed the case. Now, under the situation where he knew that he was going to die, the reason why this great Earth Bear, who was at the 6th level of the immortal realm, directly teleported from the interior of the life planet, traversing over 1,000,000 kilometers of space, and arrived at Yi Xian's side at lightning speed was because its only purpose was to self-detonate. Its opponent was too powerful. With the terrifying strength of a marquee realm of the immortal realm, it had no chance of winning at all. Only by self-detonating at all costs could it win a little bit of dignity for its death, the dignity that belonged to an immortal realm expert. In fact, the gigantic earthen bear was well aware that even if it self-detonated at such a close distance, it would still not be able to kill the opponent directly with the boundless vital energy and blood in the opponent's powerful physical body that was 1,000,000 feet in size. Even serious injuries were an extravagant hope. At most, it would be some light injuries which were slightly better than superficial wounds. All of this made it feel helpless, but it was powerless to change anything. An ordinary immortal realm expert facing an immortal realm expert was, in fact, no different from an ant facing a ferocious beast. Everything it was doing now was to make a final struggle after knowing that it was going to die. It wanted to lessen the unwillingness in its heart and show more of its dignity as an immortal realm ferocious beast before its death. Unfortunately, Yi Xian would not give it this chance. Compared to him, who was millions of meters tall, this giant earth bear, which was only tens of thousands of meters tall, would only be able to cause Yi Xian a bit of damage even if it were to self-destruct from a distance of less than 10,000 kilometers away from him. It would only be slightly embarrassing and close to injuring Yi Xian. But, since he had the ability to stop all of this, why would he give his opponent the chance to provoke and blaspheme him? Self-detonation? You seem to be a little too naive. In the next instant, the great earth bear, which was at the 6th level of the immortal realm, teleported across more than 1,000,000 kilometers of space and appeared less than 10,000 kilometers away from Yi Xian. From the mouth of the ancient demon ape, which was nearly 10,000 kilometers away, came a voice transmission. It was a sentence that was obviously filled with mockery. Shoo! The next moment, as the ancient demon ape waved its hand, a huge cauldron as big as a star appeared in front of its huge body in the blink of an eye. Boom! At the same time, in the void thousands of miles away, the giant earth bear directly detonated its divine soul and body, turning into a bloody mist with a violent aura. Like a hurricane, it swept towards Yi Xian. Phew! In the face of all this, the ancient demon ape did not even flinch. With a mocking and even disdainful smile on its face, it waved its hand. From the star cauldron in front of it, a brilliant rainbow flame swept out in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the violent energy that was roaring towards it. When they collided, there was no earth-shattering explosion, nor was there any endlessly raging energy. The terrifying hurricane-like energy formed by the explosion of the giant earthen bear's spirit and physical body was enveloped by the rainbow flames that were heading towards them. In an instant, it was under some kind of unknown and mysterious might. Under the influence of the rainbow flame, it was rapidly compressed. After 3 short breaths of time, the boundless flesh and blood energy completely dissipated. The rainbow flame that had shot out also circled in the air for a while before turning around and rushing back into the Shenong cauldron, disappearing from the mouth of the cauldron that was shrouded in rainbow mist. Chapter 4202. Blood Essence? Good stuff indeed. Yi Xian muttered to himself as he looked at the crimson bead the size of a baby's fist in his right palm. He praised it softly with a satisfied look on his face. This was the first time he had refined a blood essence. Ever since the Shenong unusual flame was upgraded to the 7-colored flame, Yi Xian's control of the Shenong cauldron's power had reached a new height. Since then, he had been able to control the Shenong 7-colored flame and directly refine some powerful fierce beasts into a blood essence. All the condensed blood essence contained all the vital energy of the ferocious beast that was refined. It could be said to be extremely precious. Moreover, this blood essence could be swallowed directly. It was very beneficial for improving one's cultivation and restoring one's strength. However, fierce beasts below the immortal realm were basically worthless to be refined. This was because fierce beasts below the immortal realm had a lot of impurities in their qi and blood essences. After being refined by the Shenong 7-colored flame, the impurities would be removed and only the essences would be left. It was also of little value. In other words, it was best to use powerful fierce beasts above the immortal realm as raw materials to refine a blood essence. Before this, Yi Xian's own cultivation was too weak. Even if he activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and directly entered the 5th transformation of the demonic ape, he would only be at the peak of the 9th step of the immortal stage. It was almost unrealistic to control the Shenong 7-colored flame and refine a supreme fierce beast at the immortal realm into a blood essence without resistance. But now, he had only used the 5th transformation of the 9 transformation of demonic ape, and he already had the strength of a first-level immortal marquis. If he only used the Shenong 7-colored flame to refine an ordinary immortal rank beast, he wouldn't dare to say it was easy, but he would definitely succeed. The reason why Yi Xian didn't refine the immortal rank ferocious beast was because refining blood essence wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. It required a certain amount of time. Now that they were in the middle of a war, Yi Xian wasn't in the mood to refine blood essence. However, the immortal rank ferocious beast behind him self-destructed. Its originally sturdy ferocious beast body directly turned into a cloud of blood mist energy, eliminating the many steps that Yi Xian had to go through to refine the blood essence. Almost immediately after the Shenong 7-colored flame enveloped the cloud of blood mist energy, the refinement was completed. Since that was the case, he naturally wouldn't let it go so easily. With a thought, he obtained an immortal-level fierce beast blood essence that contained boundless vital energy. If that self-destructing immortal rank ferocious beast knew that this was the result, even if it had already fallen, it wouldn't be able to rest in peace at this point. The 2 immortal-level ferocious beasts in this forbidden space had been completely annihilated. Although there were still tens of millions of ferocious beasts left, and there were even a few dozen universe-level existences among them, Yi Xian had no intention of making another move. Swish! Swish! With a thought, 10 figures were sent out from the Shenong cauldron. They were none other than the flying centipede, old monster Silver G, and the 8 great guardian deities, who had all grown into star lords after breaking through in the past month. I'll leave the universe-level ferocious beasts to the 2 of you to deal with. Remember, don't kill them all. Give a few of them to the universe-level ferocious beasts on Sangji Star. With a step, Yi Xian turned around and went to the mouth of the Shenong cauldron, which was enshrouded in 9-colored mist, and sat down cross-legged. At the same time, he turned his head to look at the flying centipede and old monster Silver G, who had just rushed out of the Shenong cauldron, and gave an order. As for the 8 great guardian deities, he couldn't be bothered with them at all. These guys wouldn't be separated easily, but with their intelligence, they could naturally guess that the only reason Yi Xian sent them out of the Shenong cauldron was to let them participate in the great battle and find ferocious beasts with similar cultivation and strength. This was weapon refinement. Roar! Screech! In the next instant, the flying centipede and old monster Silver G raised their heads and let out a furious roar. In an instant, they turned into 2 streaks of light and rushed toward the great battle ahead. To them, just dealing with a few hundred universe-grade ferocious beasts was like a piece of cake. This was simply a one-sided slaughter. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it had only been less than half an hour since Yi Xian had killed the first immortal-grade ferocious beast. A large number of ferocious beasts roared as they rushed out of the planet's atmosphere on the dozen or so vital planets in the distant void ahead. From this moment on, the real tragic battle could be considered to be in full swing. However, to Yi Xian, the outcome of this bloody battle was already without any suspense. In this starry sky danger zone, only 2 immortal-grade ferocious beasts were left. No matter how many ferocious beasts there were, they definitely wouldn't be able to cause too much of a stir. Rumble! Boom! Screech! Roar! In the void, earth-shattering explosions rang out one after another. The entire vast void was in an uproar. From time to time, various kinds of angry roars, ferocious roars and vicious howls could be heard, shaking the heavens. For the tens of millions of ferocious beasts on the dozen or so vital planets in this starry sky danger zone, this battle was a bloody one of extinction. But to the 20,000 demon scouts led by Gue Hai Dao and Song Qingyu, as well as the tens of millions of primordial survivors in the thousands of mountain villages on Mulberry Ji, this battle was merely a battle to refine weapons that made one's heart surge with excitement. Yi Xian didn't pay too much attention to it. After the time it took to eat a meal, He retracted his gaze and looked at the blood-colored bead the size of an infant's fist that he had been holding in his right palm all this time. This tiny blood essence contains all the blood and energy of an immortal rank ferocious beast. Moreover, it has been purified and refined by the Shenong 7-colored flame, removing the impurities and preserving the essences. Looking at the blood essence in his hand, Yi Xian's eyes emitted strands of light as he muttered to himself, "This kind of thing, even this Star Lord has only condensed it for the first time. I just don't know what its effects are. However, it's the vital energy of an immortal-grade ferocious beast after all. In addition, this is the first time I've consumed something like this. The effect should be even more obvious. Therefore, if nothing unexpected happens, this blood essence should be very likely to allow my cultivation strength to break through again." Thinking of this, Yi Xian no longer hesitated. His eyes flashed again as he directly threw the blood essence into his mouth. He didn't taste anything at all. In the blink of an eye, it entered his stomach and turned into a scorching energy that rapidly circulated in his limbs and bones. Chapter 4203. Walala. As the effect of the blood essence spread out, it turned into a blazing energy river that surged through Yi Xian's body. Instantly, the sound of chains rattling could be heard in his mind. These chains were the shackles of human potential that limited his growth and evolution. Every time one of them was torn apart, it meant that Yi Xian's cultivation level would increase to a certain extent. The shackles of human potential also varied in size. Every time he took the gene culture fluid and broke through the bottleneck of a major realm, he would encounter and eventually be torn apart by the huge shackles. And if it was only a small breakthrough within the same realm, then what one would encounter and ultimately be torn apart would be the smaller shackles of the human body. At this moment, as the effect of the blood essence spread out, it turned into a blazing energy river that surged through Yi Xian's body. What appeared in Yi Xian's body was clearly a smaller shackle of human potential. If the shackle of human potential was broken, his cultivation level would increase again and he would break through a minor realm. The whole process was undoubtedly painful. However, Yi Xian was already used to this kind of pain. It was nothing to him. He immersed his mind and spirit in it. With the profound meaning of the ancient Dongshu tactics, he activated the blazing energy river in his body. It flowed along his meridians and carried out great circulations one after another. Every time a great circulations was completed, the small shackle of human potential in his body became weaker. After an entire 49 cycles, a loud clanging sound suddenly sounded out in Yi Xian's mind. At this moment, the scorching energy that had been surging through the 100 meridians in his body was completely exhausted. The next moment, Yi Xian opened his eyes. In his mind, the familiar sound of the system notification rang out. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu tactics. Current realm. Level 5 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body's qi and blood. Current realm. Level 5 of the immortal realm. Before this, his original body's strength had been at the sempiternal realm 4th order. However, once he activated the ancient demonic ape bloodline, his strength shot up to the sempiternal realm 5th order. If he could use the 9 demon ape transformations and reach the 6th transformation, he would instantly reach rank 2 Marquis Immortal. And now with his cultivation base breaking through, Yi Xian could activate the demon ape bloodline in his body and enter the 6th transformation of the demon ape. At that time, his peak battle strength would reach rank 3 Marquis Immortal realm. He was already at the peak of early Marquis Immortal realm. He only needed one more minor breakthrough to enter the middle Marquis Immortal realm. A single drop of blood essence allowed me to break through a small stage. This kind of good news is simply too unbelievable. Yi Xian was extremely excited when he felt the strength in his body increase significantly. He clenched his fists tightly as he muttered to himself. This time, he was in a hurry to cultivate in seclusion at the edge of the battlefield of the land of conquest. On the surface he seemed to be a little impatient, but in fact the reason why he did so was just to test the effect of this blood essence. This result was of great importance. If the blood essence's effect was extraordinary, Yi Xian would not hesitate to capture any immortal realm fierce beasts he encountered in the forbidden lands of the starry sky in the following battles. He would either blast them into a cloud of blood mist and refine them into blood essence on the spot. If the effect was disappointing, There was no need for him to do so in the following battles. It was a thankless and meaningless task, but now it seemed that he was very satisfied with the result. Although it was very likely that this was the first time he had consumed this kind of blood essence, so the effect was very obvious. Even so, the heaven-defying effect of the blood essence could basically be confirmed. After all, this was the compressed form of all the qi and blood in the body of an immortal realm fierce beast, after being refined by the Shenong 7-colored flame. Even if the effect would be affected if he consumed too much in the future, there would still be a bottom line no matter how bad it was. In short, this blood essence was definitely a good thing. Even if it took a lot of strength to refine one, it was worth it. Roar. Screech. Rumble. In the distant battlefield in the void, angry roars and roars could still be heard from time to time. There were even earth-shattering explosions, but compared to when Yi Xian closed his eyes and began his closed-door training, it was obviously much rarer. During this closed-door training, he used the profound meaning of the ancient cave void formula to drive the blazing river of energy that was formed after the blood essence was dissolved in his body. The river of energy circulated in his meridians for 49 cycles, which took him nearly an entire day. After a day, this originally one-sided starry sky battle had basically entered the stage where it was about to come to an end. Looking around, the battlefield in the void was a sea of light and fire. There were corpses and remains of fierce beasts everywhere. Of course, there were also some corpses of the Desolation survivors scattered around. Whether it was Yi Xian or the tens of millions of Desolation survivors on Mulberry Star, they had long been mentally prepared for this. In a starry sky battle of this level, even if one side had an overwhelming battle strength, it was inevitable that there would be casualties. It could even be said that if there were no casualties, it would not be able to achieve the true effect of refining weapons. A group of iron-blooded lions could only grow rapidly in the test of blood and fire. However, even though there were quite a number of survivors from the Antiquity era who had perished, it was definitely not a large number. At most, there were only a few tens of thousands of them, compared to the tens of millions of ferocious beasts that had almost been completely annihilated. Such a small amount of losses was practically negligible. However, the 20,000 Demon Dweller Scouts led by Gue Hai Dao and Song Qingyu had not lost a single one in this battle. On one hand, this was because the 20,000 Demon Dweller Scouts had always been gathered together, helping each other and forming a battle formation that they had long been familiar with to kill the enemy. On the other hand, it was also because of the special care of the Flying Centipede and Old Monster Inji. These two old men clearly knew that these 20,000 Demon Dweller Scouts were old men who had followed Yi Xian for a long time. Naturally, they would not watch any of them die at the hands of the fierce beasts. Of course, this did not mean that these two old men did not care about the Desolation survivors. The key was that there were too many Desolation survivors. There were tens of millions of them, and there were even more than 1 million battle arcs. How could the two of them take care of so many Desolation survivors? Half a day later, the last ferocious beast was killed. The void was completely silent. The roar of the ferocious beast could no longer be heard. At this point, the tens of millions of fierce beasts in this starry sky forbidden area had been completely wiped out without exception. Chapter 4204. The battle lasted only a day before it was completely over. Tens of millions of ferocious beasts in the dozen or so habitable planets in this forbidden space were completely annihilated. Yi Xian didn't interfere with the cleanup work after the battle. He didn't even pay attention to his original subordinates. The Flying Centipede, Old Monster Inji, and the 8 Great Vajras immediately rushed back into the Farmer God Cauldron. They still had plenty of top-grade flesh and blood medicines, so compared to the boring battle, they were more interested in cultivating in seclusion in the cauldron and making breakthroughs in their cultivation. Even Gue Hai Dao, Song Qingyu, and the 20,000 demon scouts under their command did the same. After the final battle, they immediately rushed back to the vital fortress and seized the time to cultivate. On the one hand, they wanted to continue their cultivation, and on the other, they wanted to digest the results of the battle. What they obtained. The task of cleaning up the battlefield fell to the tens of millions of primordial survivors, led by the 20 to 30 old monsters of the universe. In fact, all the survivors of the primordial era were in favor of this matter. More than 10 million star beasts had been killed in this battle, and all of them were relatively powerful elite beasts. For the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree, such a bountiful harvest was absolutely unprecedented. It had never happened before. Generally speaking, even if the 12 tribes had thousands of mountain villages of various sizes and sent out a large number of elite forces to join forces and charge out of Mulberry Tree for a large-scale space hunt, the number of ferocious beast corpses they could harvest was usually between 1 and 2 million. The most they'd managed to harvest was close to 3 million, but the quality was slightly lacking. But this time, more than 10 million elite beasts had been completely wiped out, leaving only the corpses of the primordial beasts that they coveted. For the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree, the ultimate goal of the previous battle and bloodshed was to reap the rewards of this moment. Therefore, compared to the previous bloody battle, the current work of wrapping up the battlefield was actually more exciting and exciting. As far as the eye could see, the desolate survivors of Mulberry Orchid Star could be seen bustling among the remains of enormous beasts in the vast expanse of space occupied by the more than a dozen planets with life. Perhaps these guys were too excited and had never encountered such a bountiful harvest before. While cleaning up this huge void battlefield, they would occasionally let out loud and long wolf howls or roar out the majestic battle song of the remnants. If one had to describe this scene in one sentence, perhaps it would be, every one of them looks like they've been injected with chicken blood. That was the most appropriate description. The cleanup work lasted more than half a day. During this process, tens of millions of primordial survivors were busy and happy. To them, this was definitely a kind of enjoyment and not hard work. In the end, even Yi Xian was extremely impatient. He rolled his eyes and urged them to finish their work quickly. Only then did the speed and efficiency of collecting the spoils of war quickly increase. Tens of millions of primordial survivors worked together at the same time. In just 2 hours, they had collected all the corpses of the fierce beasts in the void into their storage magic treasures. At this point, this forbidden area of the starry sky had been completely wiped out. Not even a corpse of a fierce beast was left behind. In less than 2 days, in the blink of an eye, one of the 6 forbidden lands of the starry sky that surrounded the Mulberry G star and trapped the tens of millions of survivors of the Desolation era in this galaxy that spanned hundreds of millions of miles was gone. There were still 5 forbidden areas of the starry sky left. Yi Xian decided to deal with 1 or 2 more forbidden areas of the starry sky in one go. Although he had collected tens of millions of corpses of fierce beasts this time, which was enough for the primordial survivors of the 12 tribes on Mulberry Tree to refine several furnaces of blood and flesh medicine in each of the thousands of villages of various sizes on Mulberry Tree. But all this could not enter Yi Xian's eyes. Although these tens of millions of corpses of fierce beasts were a lot, their quality was so poor that they were useless to him. On the contrary, the blood essence that he had condensed before was quite interesting to him. It could even be said that his heart was a little restless and he could not restrain himself. Of the remaining 5 forbidden areas of the starry sky, the one closest to the one that had just been wiped out was located in the void on the right side, about 70 to 80 million kilometers away. With the maximum speed of the Long Starry Sky Fortress, it could be reached in the time it takes to eat a meal. What made Yi Xian speechless was that after he decided to attack this forbidden area of the starry sky and gave the order to board the ship at the first possible moment, it took more than 2 hours for the millions of battleships driven by the survivors of Mulberry Tree to enter the Long Starry Sky Fortress one after another. With this time he could have made a round trip from that forbidden area of the starry sky. But this could not be helped. Since he was going to refine his army, he had to bring a large number of troops with him. It was impossible for him to go into battle alone, so it was inevitable that he would spend some time on these minor details. 2 hours later, all the battleships of the survivors had entered the Long Starry Sky Fortress. Yi Xian followed closely behind and stepped into the core command cabin of the fortress. Then, following his order, the Long Starry Sky Fortress turned into a dim stream of light and accelerated. It shot towards the second target 70 to 80 million kilometers away. After the time it takes to eat a meal, a new bloody war in the starry sky would begin. At this time, Yi Xian had activated the Demon Ape bloodline in his body, revealing the true form of the 3-head 6-arms Demon Ape, and directly entering the 5th transformation of the 9 transformations Demon Ape, which gave him the strength of a first-order Marquis Immortal. At this time he had already spread out his divine sense, and made a simple investigation of the forbidden areas around Mulberry Tree. He had already investigated them. Among them was the forbidden area of the Starry Sky that the Longyi Starry Sky Fortress was heading towards. In general, the overall strength of this forbidden area was about the same as that of the forbidden area of the Starry Sky that had just been destroyed. There were only a dozen planets with life which were gathered in a corner of the universe. They were not far from each other. And the number of ferocious beasts living on these dozen planets was more than 10 million. However, in this forbidden area, there were a total of 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts. The weakest one was only at first-order immortal level, while the strongest one was at 8th order immortal level, which was about the same strength as the flying centipede who had just broken through. If it were any other race or force, suddenly attacking such a powerful forbidden area of the Starry Sky, and facing 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts, at the same time would be very stressful. Chapter 4205. As for the fact that there was a forbidden land tens of millions of miles away that had been completely wiped out by the primordial survivors of Sangji's star, the remaining 5 all knew about it long ago. This battle had caused such a huge commotion, it was impossible to hide it. Moreover, the one who led the tens of millions of desolation survivors on Sangji's star to accomplish this feat was a supreme being with the cultivation base of a marquis. This was something that the higher-ups of the remaining 5 forbidden lands were also well aware of. Originally, they didn't care about the tens of millions of desolation survivors on Sangji's star. Although there were quite a number of desolation survivors on this star, there were at least tens of millions of them. But before this, the strongest was only at the Sector Lord realm. Even the Sector Lord old monsters were only at the Sector Lord realm. Over a dozen. For the 6 great Starry Sky forbidden zones that had immortal-level ferocious beasts guarding the 6 surrounding areas, and there was more than one of them, this level of power was not worth their attention at all. They could just casually send one of their universe-level ferocious beasts to destroy it. In fact, the reason why the higher-ups of the 6 forbidden zones had not made a move on the primordial remnant on Mulberry Tree for so many years was because they wanted to wait for the primordial remnant to grow to a population of at least a few 100 million before making a move. Simply put, they were just rearing them. However, what the upper echelons of the Forbidden Lands didn't expect was that the Sangji star that they viewed as a breeding ground for their prey would suddenly appear out of nowhere. A terrifying official-level undying that made them tremble in fear appeared out of nowhere. When they first sensed the powerful spirit energy of this official-level undying, many of the upper echelons of the 6 Forbidden Lands even had thoughts of fleeing out of fear. But this was obviously unrealistic because in the wider cosmic void behind them, there were still forbidden lands in the Starry Sky that were more powerful overall, and even the tribes of the survivors. These space forbidden lands and tribes all had official-level undyings. There were even emperor-level undyings in some tribes and forbidden lands. To put it bluntly, the leaders of the ferocious beasts in the 6 forbidden areas of space were actually just dwelling in this corner of the universe. However, compared to the tribes of the survivors of Mulberry G-Star, who were surrounded by them in the central territory and were imperceptibly sealed, the space and range of their activities were much wider. That was all. This ancient fragment of the desolate era was too vast. The high-level beasts in the 6 forbidden lands were only at the immortal realm. They were far from being able to roam freely in this fragment of the void, even if they were just wandering around. Under such circumstances, facing this originally peaceful and secluded area, the sudden appearance of this official-level undying, since they couldn't turn and flee, their only choice was to stay and fight to the death. However, none of the 6 forbidden lands were a match for this mysterious marquis official-level undying. Against such a powerful being, they had almost no chance of resisting. The moment they started fighting, within a short period of time, all of the forbidden lands could only be considered as one of them. That was the end result. This was proven by the facts. In just a day's time, one of the 6 forbidden grounds was destroyed, leaving only 5 of them left. To these 5 remaining forbidden lands, if they wanted to survive the war of this powerful official-level undying, their only chance of survival was to work together. Any single forbidden land couldn't fight against an official-level undying. Only if the 5 of them worked together, with more than 20 normal official-level undyings attacking at the same time, they might be able to fight for a chance of survival. This was something the immortal rank ferocious beast higher-ups in the 5 forbidden star zones understood when they learned that one of the forbidden star zones had been completely destroyed. In an instant, The immortal rank upper echelons of the 5 forbidden lands of stars started a discussion immediately. The purpose of the discussion was to determine which forbidden land of stars would be the final battlefield for the final battle with the other party. Unfortunately, before this negotiation could reach a conclusion, the undying Marquis, who had just annihilated a forbidden area of the starry sky, had already arrived at the second forbidden area of the starry sky with the tens of millions of people under his command at lightning speed. All of this caught the immortal rank ferocious beasts of the 5 forbidden zones off guard. They originally thought that this army of survivors would at least return to Mulberry G-Star to rest for a while before launching a follow-up expedition. They didn't expect everything to happen so quickly. On the other side, it was only half a day after the annihilation of the first forbidden land, and a huge battleship the size of a small star had already arrived above the second forbidden land. The ongoing negotiations were immediately interrupted. The other 4 immortal-level beasts' upper echelons didn't hesitate to abandon the second forbidden area that Yi Xian had set his eyes on. The original alliance of the 5 forbidden lands became the current alliance of the 4 forbidden lands. Moreover, before the bloody battle in the second forbidden area had begun, the tens of millions of ferocious beasts in the other 4 forbidden areas had already begun to move. All of them came out of their nests and rushed towards the agreed location of the final battle. Yi Xian didn't know about all this and he didn't care. In this area, he had the battle strength of an official level undying, and he was already equivalent to a unique supreme overlord. In the face of absolute crushing power, all struggles and conspiracies were futile. Although there was no way to escape, and even the other 4 forbidden lands in the starry sky that originally wanted to ally with them had abandoned them without hesitation. However, the tens of millions of fierce beasts in this forbidden land still didn't intend to give up the battle and surrender. In fact, they also knew that even if they gave up the battle and surrendered, they would still end up being slaughtered one by one. This was because the tens of millions of people of the desolation on Sangji Star needed the flesh and blood of these fierce beasts. They had been doing this for a long time. They had been in the void, hunting the wandering fierce beasts that didn't belong to the 6 forbidden lands. In other words, no matter what, the result of this battle would be complete annihilation. In this case, instead of humiliating themselves by surrendering without a battle, it was better to show their courage and fight to the death with their opponents. Chapter 4206. Boom! Rumble. An earth-shattering roar reverberated in the void. As soon as they arrived, the hatch of the Long Yi Star Life Fortress was immediately opened. Tens of millions of survivors of the desolate ancient era in thousands of mountain villages of various sizes on the Mulberry G-Star mobilized all of them, driving more than 1 million battleships of various types, and rushed out of the Star Fortress with awe-inspiring fighting spirit. They were charging toward the army of millions of beasts that had formed up in the void. The 20,000 demon scouts led by Gue Hai Dao and Song Qingyu, including Ingtai, had all charged out of the Star Fortress. They maintained their original battle formation and swept forward with a rumble. The 8 great guardian warriors, the Flying Centipede, and Old Freak Silver G were also sent out of the Shinong Cauldron by Yi Xian to join the battle. The 8 great guardian warriors' mission was still to train themselves, while the Flying Centipede and Old Freak Silver Pole's mission was still the same as before. They were responsible for killing the majority of the universe-grade beasts and leaving only a small portion for the universe-grade powerhouses on their side to train. As for Yi Xian, after he stepped out of the giant star fortress, he waved his hand and kept the giant star fortress in the undying world in his body to prevent it from being damaged in the fierce battle. Immediately afterward, he raised his head and roared, directly activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body. Roar! As Yi Xian roared towards the sky, the power within his body instantly surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body was like a balloon that was being blown up as it quickly swelled up. A primeval devil ape with 3 heads and 6 arms had already appeared in space. The aura of its 3 true bodies was shocking, and its figure had attained a height of 30 m. It possessed 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura it emitted was ferocious to the point it was astounding. Roar! 9 changes of the demonic ape. First transformation. Another furious roar rang out, and the ancient ape demon's body instantly swelled to 10 times its original height of 100 feet, reaching its current height of 1,000 feet. Then similar scenes appeared several times. Roar! 9 transformations of the demonic ape. Fourth transformation. A fifth roar rang out as the ancient ape demon's ferocious three-headed, six-armed form expanded to a height of 1,000,000 feet after entering its fourth transformation. Roar! 9 transformations of the demonic ape. Fifth transformation. With a final roar, the ancient demon ape's body expanded again until it was 1,000,000 zhang tall. At this time its aura had reached rank 2 Marquee Immortal Realm. However, this was still not the end. Not long ago, Yi Xian had painstakingly comprehended the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, and had yet to use it. Today was an opportunity, and he couldn't wait to sense how terrifying the boundless vital energy and blood possessed by such a terrifying figure was. Roar! 9 transformations of the demonic ape. 6th transformation. With that final roar, the primordial ape demon, which had already reached a size of 1,000,000 feet, instantly swelled to 10 times its original size, reaching a terrifying size of 10,000,000 feet. This size was absolutely comparable to a small star. At this moment, the aura emitted from his body had reached the pinnacle of his current level. Level 3 Marquee Immortal. Although its cultivation base was only at 3rd level Marquee Immortal, such a huge demonic ape wasn't inferior to a small star. The boundless blood and chi energy it contained was simply indescribable to be described with the word hair-raising. Without a doubt, if he were to include the support of the terrifying chi and blood energy within this terrifying body, the current Yi Xian wouldn't be inferior in a direct battle with the peak of the middle stage of the immortal 6th order. Facing all this, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts in a row in the void tens of thousands of miles away were completely dumbfounded. They thought that their opponent was just a mysterious existence at level 1 Marquee Immortal Realm. If that was the case, although they would still die, they could at least struggle for a while before they died. After all, the opponent was only a rank 1 Marquee Immortal Realm expert. Obviously, he had just broken through to the rank 1 Marquee Immortal Realm. Perhaps he hadn't even stabilized his realm yet. But who would have thought that as soon as the opponent arrived, his originally inconspicuous body would explode again and again. From beginning to end, he had become as big as a small star in just a few breaths' time. As for his cultivation strength, it had reached the terrifying rank 3 Marquee Immortal Realm Expert. Rank 3 Marquee Immortal Realm Expert. Plus the terrifying vital energy and blood in such a gigantic body, the opponent's true battle strength was probably comparable to a rank 6 Marquee Immortal Realm Expert. So how could they fight this battle? In the face of such a terrifying existence, even the last bit of struggle before their death had become meaningless. Roar! Screech! Under the great fear, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beast commanders who had been standing in a row in the void in front of them, who had already made up their minds to fight to the death with this Marquee Immortal Realm Expert, let out a screech in unison and involuntarily turned around to flee. At this moment, they were already scared out of their wits. Even if they knew that this kind of action of turning around and fleeing was completely meaningless, the other party could still crush them one by one like crushing an ant. However, they could not help but turn around and flee. This was completely under the state of being in a state of complete terror. This was a completely subconscious action. All of you are my blood essence. Suddenly turning around and fleeing at this time. Don't you think it's a bit too late? Yi Xian rolled his eyes when he saw that these 5 fellows were completely terrified. They were all immortal realm old monsters, and 5 of them at that. They actually didn't say a single word and turned around to flee. Before he finished speaking, his devil ape true body, which was as huge as a star, suddenly waved his hand. Boom! The next moment, a starry sky cauldron, which was hundreds of times larger than Yi Xian's current size and was comparable to the biggest superstar, appeared in the void with a wave of his hand, directly blocking the path of the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts who had turned around to flee. Huff! Immediately after, with a thought from Yi Xian, a majestic sea of 7 colored flames swept out from the cauldron that was like a gigantic star. It was as if a large river had suddenly leaked out from the tip of the Milky Way, and in the blink of an eye, it had transformed into an endless sea of flames. After spreading out, it directly covered an area of 10 million kilometers. The universe void was completely enveloped. In front, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts who had been blocked by the starry sky cauldron were all trapped in this sea of 7 colored flames that hung over millions of miles. In an instant, it was impossible for them to escape even if they had wings. Chapter 4207. The 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts were enveloped by the magnificent sea of flames that Yi Xian had summoned from the Shenong cauldron in the blink of an eye. They were surrounded by the Shenong flames of 7 colors. There was nowhere to run. The 5 ferocious beasts were a lion, a tiger, a fox, an eagle, and a sharp-cheeked giant rat. The sharp-cheeked giant rat was the smallest, but it was actually the strongest. It had reached the 8th level of the immortal state, only 1 level away from the peak of the 9th level. However, due to its bloodline, it was only around 3,000 meters long. It was a giant among rats, but it was only average compared to some Star-Lord ferocious beasts. Compared to Yi Xian, which was as big as a star, it was almost negligible. Regardless, apart from that, the largest of the 5 ferocious beasts was a black tiger. It was 70 to 80,000 zhang tall and looked extremely mighty. However, its cultivation base was the weakest among the 5 ferocious beasts. It was only at level 1 sempiternal realm. It seemed like it had just recently become a ferocious beast. It had just broken through. Boom! As he stepped into this vast sea of flames that was tens of millions of kilometers in radius, Yi Xian's enormous body instantly occupied a small space. Compared to him, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts were so small that they were like ants. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian punched at the black tiger that was the largest of the 5, which was around 80,000 meters long. Yi Xian had used his full strength in this punch. Before the enormous iron fist had even arrived, the boundless force had already caused the black tiger's enormous body to explode into a bloody mist from a distance of 1,000,000 kilometers. Phew! Almost at the same time, a Shenong 7-colored flame swept down from the boundless sea of flames above his head. As if it had a mind of its own, it directly enveloped the vast blood mist formed by the explosion of the immortal rank black tiger's body and began to refine it. Pew! 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 Although this punch was aimed at the black tiger old monster, the current Yi Xian's body was simply too large. When the punch was thrown out, the surging force instantly filled the entire space that was enveloped by the 7-colored sea of flames. The other 4 immortal-level ferocious beasts couldn't dodge at all. They had to bear the impact of the remaining force on their bodies. They all opened their mouths and spurted out blood. Don't waste it like that. That's the essence of your blood. If you keep spitting it out, the quality of your blood essence will be affected. Seeing this scene, a cold light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. He took a large step forward and closed in on them in an instant. He spread out his arms, and a pair of wind pierced through his ears from the left and right, surrounding the 4 immortal realm old monsters. Screech! Screech! The giant rat, which was the fastest and most agile one, was Yi Xian's attack. It was shrieked and doe screech. It was Yi Shuez's head was. The 6-tailed heavenly fox, whose cultivation was in the middle, followed closely behind. It saw an opening and narrowly escaped from Yi Xian's right arm as it whistled through the air. Although they were still trapped in this area with a radius of 10 million miles, at least they had avoided the calamity in front of them. Only the azure-maned lion and the black-feathered furious eagle were a bit too big and their cultivation was a bit too weak. In the end, they weren't able to dodge this attack and were continuously blasted apart by Yi Xian's left and right arms that whistled through the air. Their bodies turned into a bloody mist without any suspense and spread out. Immediately afterward, 2 Shenong 7-colored flames roared out from the sea of 7-colored flames above. They swept across and completely enveloped the 2 immortal rank ferocious beasts' blood mist that had just exploded, directly starting the blood essence condensation process. Senior, we're willing to surrender. Can you spare our lives? As long as you can spare our lives, we're willing to serve you in the future. Seeing that Yi Xian had killed 2 more of his companions, it would definitely be their turn next. The 6-tailed heavenly fox and the giant rat of the 8th step trembled in their hearts. They immediately lowered their bodies and begged for mercy. There's no need. I already have too many subordinates under me. Fiad you guys. I really can't afford to feed them. In the face of their pleas, Yi Xian shook his head and refused on the spot. Besides, what's more attractive to me now is the blood essence condensation of the immortal level ferocious beasts. You guys are the best raw materials. Boom! Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian turned around and punched with both fists again. This time the 6-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat had nowhere to run. Their front and left were blocked by Yixian, and behind them and above them was the burning sea of 7 colors flames. Screech! Screech! In horror and despair, the 6-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat raised their heads at the same time and let out a shrill screech. Almost at the next moment, 2 shocking explosions were heard. The bodies of the 6-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat exploded without any suspense. They were each blown into a bloody mist by Yixian's punch. Immediately after that, 2 canisters of Shenong's 7 colors flames fell from the sea of 7 colors flames above their heads. They wrapped around each other and immediately began to refine them. 5, huh? The harvest this time can be said to be huge. Licking the corner of his mouth, Yixian immediately deactivated his 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape true form. With a wave of his hand, the sea of 7 colors flames that covered thousands of miles whizzed out and disappeared into the mouth of the Shenong cauldron in the distant void. Floating in front of him were 5 blood essences of ferocious beasts of different sizes and colors. They were all immortal level. Whoosh! Whoosh! A faint sound of breaking air was heard. With Yixian's thought, the 5 blood essence beads floating in front of him instantly turned into 5 faint blood-colored rays of light that shot directly into Yixian's mouth and disappeared. This time there are 5 blood essences. I wonder, can I break through 2 levels in a row? Muttering softly, Yixian's figure flashed. When he reappeared, he was already at the mouth of the Shenong cauldron in the distance, which was enshrouded in 9-colored mist. He sat down cross-legged and began a new round of closed-door cultivation to break through. Rumble! Roar! Screech! In the distance, a series of loud explosions, as well as the roars and howls of the ferocious beasts, continued to be heard, one after another rising and falling. On the other side, Yixian easily dealt with 5 immortal stage ferocious beasts in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. In the surrounding void of the universe, the curtains of the bloody battle between the millions of battleships on Sangji Star and the 20,000 demon cultivator scouts led by Gue Hai Dao and Song Qingyu, and the millions of ferocious beasts in this forbidden space of stars had just begun. Chapter 4208. In the void, a mysterious cauldron the size of a giant star stood there quietly. The mouth of the cauldron was filled with rolling 9-colored fog. A figure was sitting cross-legged there. It was Yixian, who had swallowed the 5 blood essences and was trying to break through again at this time. As the effect of the 5 blood essences was released, they turned into a scorching river of energy that surged in Yixian's body. Once again, a small human shackle appeared in his body. The incomparably hot blood essence energy surged endlessly in his body. This process was undoubtedly painful, but he immersed his mind in it. With the profound meaning of the ancient cave void tactics, he urged the incomparably hot energy river in his body to flow along his meridians, completing the great circulatory cycle. This time perhaps it was because this was not the first time he had consumed the blood essences, but the effect of these 5 blood essences was clearly not as strong as the first time he had consumed them. Fortunately, the total amount of 5 blood essences was still able to hold on for a total of 49 cycles. Soon after, a loud crash sounded out from Yixian's mind. At this moment, the scorching energy that had been surging through the 100 meridians in his body was completely exhausted. When Yixian opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system's notification rang in his mind. Ding. Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu tactics. Current realm. Level 6 of the immortal realm. Ding. Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the body's qi and blood. Current realm. Level 6 of the immortal realm. Before this, the strength of his original body was at level 5 of the immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again to level 6 of the immortal realm. If he used the 9 changes of the demonic ape and reached the 6th change, he would instantly reach level 3 of the Marquis immortal realm. And now, with the increase in his cultivation and breakthrough, once Yixian activates the devil ape bloodline in his body and enters the 6th transformation of the devil ape, his peak combat strength will rise by another level, reaching the 4th level of the Marquis immortal. He had finally entered the middle stage of the Marquis immortal realm. Although his cultivation had successfully broken through again, and he had now reached level 6 of the immortal realm, if he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape and used the 6th change of the 9 changes of the demonic ape, he would instantly possess the terrifying battle strength of a level 4 of the Marquis Immortal Realm. However, Yi Xian did not seem too happy. Previously, just one immortal rank blood essence was enough to allow him to break through a small level after his closed-door cultivation. Now, however, it took a total of 5 immortal rank blood essences to achieve the same effect and allow him to break through a small level. This was only the second time, and he already needed 5 blood essences to break through a minor level. What would happen after that? If he wanted to break through a small level, wouldn't he need more and more blood essence? Every time Yi Xian thought of this, he wanted to sigh. He thought he had found a faster way to break through compared to using the Great Flesh Medicine. He did not expect the result to be like this. He was only happy for a day or two. Then he was disappointed. However, as long as I don't take them again, the difference between the first time and the second time will not be so great. Then, 5 immortal level blood essences is still acceptable. After calming himself down, Yi Xian's mind raced as he muttered to himself, analyzing the possibility of this happening. After a while, his eyes flashed with a bright light, and he made a decision in an instant. If he wanted to know if the third time he swallowed this blood essence, the effect would be the same as it was now, where he only needed about 5 of them to break through a small stage, or if the effect would continue to decline significantly, the only way was to personally test it and swallow it again. Then he would naturally know. Thinking of this, Yi Xianqing deliberately moved. The last 4 forbidden areas in space should have joined forces by now. Previously, when I used my divine sense to search for them for the first time, the number of immortal level beasts in these 4 forbidden areas seemed to be 14. Although he was talking about 14 immortal realm ferocious beasts, he was actually thinking about 14 immortal realm blood essences at this moment. Thinking of this, Yi Xian couldn't sit still any longer. He subconsciously turned his head to look at the surrounding void battlefield. Since the beginning of this battle, although he had already killed 5 immortal rank ferocious beasts and refined the blood mist formed after their bodies exploded into blood essence, he had even swallowed 5 blood essences into his stomach, completing a closed-door cultivation breakthrough. However, the battle around him was still going on. It continued. There was no doubt that this was a one-sided battle. However, judging from the current situation, it would take at least an entire day to clean up the mess after the battle was over. It would be fine if it was only half a day. However, Yi Xian could not wait for an entire day. Moreover, he was worried that the immortal rank ferocious beasts in the other 4 forbidden lands would turn around and flee when the fear in their hearts grew stronger. Although the army of beasts under his command could not take them away, to Yi Xian, the escape of 1 immortal level beast was equivalent to losing 1 immortal level beast blood essence. This was too extravagant. Considering this possibility, he immediately made a decision after pondering for a while. He would not wait for the battle here to end. He would immediately rush to the other 4 forbidden areas and kill the 14 immortal level beasts first. As for the battle here with the 2 immortal level beasts, Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver G, staying here to watch, there was no possibility of accidents happening. After making the decision, he immediately took action. He rushed out of the mouth of the Shenong cauldron and kept the cauldron with a wave of his hand. Then he turned his head to look at the Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver G. He instructed, "The 2 of you stay here and watch. There are still 14 immortal level beasts in the other 4 forbidden areas. It is very likely that they have joined forces. It is also possible that they are trying to escape. I will go first and deal with the 14 immortal level beasts first. You 2 wait for the battle to end and clean up the battlefield before coming back." Chapter 4209. At this moment, the energy within Yi Xian's body surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body was like a balloon that was being blown up as it quickly swelled up. An ancient ape with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared in the void. The aura of its 3 true forms, flesh, bones, and black mist, was shocking. It was around 30 meters tall, had 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura it emitted was ferocious to the point it was shocking. Howl. 9 Transformation of the Devil Ape. First Transformation. 9 Transformation of the Devil Ape. 6th Transformation. With a final howl, the ancient ape that was already 3 million meters tall, and its body was like a small star. In an instant its body expanded tenfold. reaching a terrifying 3 million meters tall. This size was comparable to a small star, and the aura emitted from its body had reached the terrifying 4th level of the Marquis level. Even though he was only at the 4th stage, if the terrifying blood and chi energy within his enormous body were to be included, the current Yi Xian would definitely be able to fight head-on against a late-stage expert at the 7th or 8th stage of the Marquis realm. If he added on the fallen sky bow and the farmer god cauldron, he would be able to fight emperors easily. What? 4th level emperor? How can he be so strong? Ancient demon ape. This powerful emperor is actually an ancient demon ape. That's an absolute bloodline. How could this remote corner of the star region have an existence that belonged to the strongest bloodline even in the distant desolate ancient era? Such a being, even in the central region of this world, would definitely be an overlord, yet here he is. This doesn't make sense. What I'm even more puzzled about is that this senior is clearly a ferocious beast, and an ancient ferocious beast with a noble and supreme bloodline. Why would he mix with those weak primordial remnants? None of this is important. What's important is that the enemy is attacking. Everyone, what should we do? Hong! Screech. Seeing Yi Xian suddenly activate the devil ape bloodline in his body, and directly use the devil ape's 9 transformations to the 6th transformation, transforming into a terrifying devil ape with 3 heads and 6 arms. The 14 immortal level ferocious beasts were instantly shocked. Caught off guard, they all cried out involuntarily. They exclaimed. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian, whose body was like a star, approached them with a leap. Without saying anything, he punched out, and in the blink of an eye, the 2 immortal level fierce beasts that were caught off guard exploded into a bloody mist. At this moment he had the fighting strength of a level 4 Marquis Immortal Realm expert, which was the middle phase of this realm. It was different from the peak of level 3 in the previous battle. He was much stronger now. It was natural that he could kill 2 immortal level beasts with one punch. Who? With a wave of his hand, 2 canopies of Shenong 7 color flames roared out of the Shenong cauldron, wrapping around the 2 canopies of blood mist and starting the blood essence refinement. All of this happened too quickly. 2 of the 14 undying beasts were killed in an instant, leaving only 12 undying beasts. At this moment, the 12 surviving immortal level beasts all retreated, not daring to lightly attack him. To the current Yi Xian, the immortal level battle prowess no longer had the qualifications to fight him head-on. Facing more than a dozen immortal level beasts, the current him was as if tiger in a flock of sheep. Senior, do you have to fight to the death like this? We have no enmity and have never offended you. Senior, as a descendant of the beasts, why are you helping those ants of Sangji Star to kill us all? Senior, we are willing to surrender to you. A dozen undying battle strength is enough to help you go to the central territory of the starry sky and seize a more powerful forbidden area. That's right. There are even immortal rank experts guarding the more powerful forbidden lands. Senior won't be able to take them down alone. We're willing to help Senior block those immortal rank generals so that Senior can focus on killing the enemy. Roar? I am unwilling. Hong. Facing Yi Xian's terrifying battle strength that was comparable to a late-stage official level undying, the 12 normal undying beasts couldn't resist at all. Even their will to fight crumbled instantly. They originally thought that the undying behind the desolate star was only at the early stage of this level, at most level 2 or 3. Who would have thought that not only was his cultivation base at level 4, but he also had a demon ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms. His blood chi was so strong that his battle strength was close to level 7 or 8 of Marquis level 8. Hence, this battle had no suspense at all. Even if they fought together, they were destined to be killed one by one. Under the fear in their hearts, the 12 ordinary immortal level beasts all tried to persuade him, patiently guiding him, and even expressed their willingness to surrender on the spot. As the vanguard, they would help Yi Xian head to the central domain of the starry sky and attack a place where the overall strength of the Marquis realm was even stronger. The will of the Forbidden Land. Unfortunately, all of this had no effect at all. The ancient ape demon was completely unmoved, and did not even bother to make any response. Oh no, its response was actually very strong, very obvious, and it immediately punched out. The majestic power of this explosion surged out and appeared too suddenly. The 2 immortal rank ferocious beasts were the first to bear the brunt of it. They had no time to dodge at all. One of them didn't even have the chance to make a sound, and the other only unwillingly raised its head and let out a heaven-shaking roar. Immediately after, the boundless strength qi that was as violent as a storm completely covered the two of them. What happened next was no surprise. Yi Xian, whose battle strength was comparable to a level 8 official level Undying, wasn't much weaker than the second-generation ancestor of the demon race. The latter was a level 9 official level Undying at the pinnacle level. At this moment, the two normal Undying beasts were only at level 3 or 4. This majestic force that made people's hair stand on end instantly wreaked havoc and made their bodies explode, turning them into a mist of blood. Who? Yi Xian was already familiar with the rest of the story. With a wave of his hand, the two Shenong 7-colored flames instantly rushed out, firmly wrapping around the two exploding fierce beast blood mist. He immediately began refining the blood essence at the first possible moment. All of this took a long time to describe. In fact, from the time Yi Xian activated the ancient ape demon bloodline in his body until now, only a dozen breaths' time had passed since he killed the 4 undying beasts with 2 punches. Chapter 42:10. There was no suspense in the outcome of the battle. Even when these 14 ordinary immortal stage ferocious beasts hadn't suffered any losses in the beginning, when the 14 immortal stage ferocious beasts joined forces to fight Yi Xian, they still didn't have the slightest chance of winning. Now, within a short span of a dozen breaths, Yi Xian had blown up 4 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts with 2 punches. There were only 10 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts left. Because of the fear and despair in their hearts, these 10 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts did not even have the confidence to join forces to fight. Their fighting spirit was completely gone. They all turned around and fled in different directions. Faced with such a situation, they were completely hopeless. They were no match for Yi Xian even if they joined forces. Now that they had scattered like birds and beasts, the only outcome was that they would be caught by Yi Xian, who was much faster than them, and killed one by one. Boom! Boom boom! Screech! Roar! In the void, as Yi Xian attacked again and again, a huge roar that shook the heavens resounded in an instant. It was followed by the desperate and unwilling roars and screeches of the immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts. This battle was too bloody. Although it was brutal, it was simple and direct. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Yi Xian had caught up to the 10 immortal level ferocious beasts one after another. Every single one of them was simply punched out, causing them to explode into a bloody mist. Then Yi Xian waved his hand and drew out a wisp of Shenong's 7-colored flame from the Shenong cauldron in his body. It enveloped the bloody mist that spread after the explosion of the target and began to condense the blood essence on the spot near and far. The tens of millions of ferocious beasts that had gathered behind the 14 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts had already scattered. As far as the eye could see, the vast expanse of space was in chaos. Everywhere were the figures of ominous beasts fleeing in panic. As these ominous beasts fled, their bodies trembled incessantly. Moreover, there were all sorts of low and deep cries due to great fear resounding throughout the area. Yi Xian didn't pay any attention to these fleeing space beasts. He wasn't interested in them at all. When the army of the survivors of Mulberry G Star arrived, they would naturally launch the final attack on these ferocious beasts in the various forbidden areas of the starry sky. Previously, Yi Xian didn't know much about the world outside the hundreds of millions of kilometers of void. However, from the information that the 14 immortal rank ferocious beasts had inadvertently revealed when they were begging for mercy, the hundreds of millions of kilometers of void surrounded by Mulberry G Star, and the 6 surrounding starry sky forbidden zones should only be limited. It was just a remote corner of this desolate ancient world fragment. Even further behind these 6 forbidden lands, there were even stronger forbidden lands. The beasts guarding them were all official level Undyings, even Emperor level Undyings. After understanding this situation, Yi Xian finally understood why none of the immortal level beasts in the 6 forbidden areas of the starry sky didn't flee far away from this starry sky when they clearly knew that an immortal level marquee level immortal 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 level immortal. This was because they had nowhere to go. In the distant void behind them, there were even more powerful forbidden lands, and there were also terrifying official level Undyings. This way, Yixian didn't have to worry about the tens of millions of ferocious beasts escaping. Similarly, they had no way to escape and could only wander about in this vast expanse of space. In a sense, Mulberry's star, which was surrounded by the 6 forbidden areas of space, was imperceptibly sealed. However, weren't the 6 forbidden areas of space the same? However, none of this had anything to do with Yixian. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with the bloody massacre he was about to unleash. The chaos of the Great Desolate Era could descend at any time. Everyone was working hard to survive because everyone wasn't just living for themselves. They all had different things to protect. Xiu! Xiu xiu xiu! A faint sound of breaking through the air was heard. From the surrounding void, streaks of bloody light shot over and landed in Yixian's right palm. They transformed into 14 blood essence beads of different sizes and colors. Looking at the 14 blood essence beads in his palm, Yixian's eyes flashed with joy. With a wave of his hand, the farmer god cauldron appeared from within his body. 14 streaks of rainbow-colored light shot over from the surrounding void and entered the cauldron. Yixian's figure also flashed as he appeared at the mouth of the Shenong cauldron that was filled with the 9-colored fog. He sat down cross-legged and threw the 14 blood essences into his mouth. After swallowing them, he closed his eyes and began another round of closed-door cultivation. When the 14 blood essence beads entered his stomach, Yixian was still a little nervous at first. This was because if the third time he swallowed these blood essence beads, the difference between the first and second time would be the same. Then, these 14 blood essence beads would be far from enough to help him break through a small level. This was definitely a result that would make people speechless. Yixian would be greatly disappointed, but at the same time he also had a strong sense of expectation in his heart. Because if the third time he swallowed them, the effect would be the same as the second time. Although it would be far inferior to the first time compared to the second time, it wouldn't be too much of a decline. Then, these 14 blood essence beads would definitely not just allow him to break through a small level. At the very least, it would allow him to break through 2 small levels or even 3 small levels. Of course, the possibility of 3 consecutive breakthroughs was still very small. Soon, the 14 blood essence beads melted in Yixian's body in the blink of an eye. They turned into a majestic and scorching energy that quickly flowed through his limbs and bones. The familiar clanking sound of chains could be heard immediately. There was also an extremely strong tingling sensation. The 1.08 billion pores on the surface of his body glowed brightly. This time, he couldn't even remember how many large circulations he had made. Finally, a loud clanking sound rang out in Yixian's mind. The scorching energy that had been surging through his meridians was completely exhausted at this moment. When he opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system notification suddenly rang out in his mind. It had happened twice in a row, which made him extremely happy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 7 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the Qi and Blood Body. Current realm. Level 7 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the Qi and Blood Body. Current realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Another 2 consecutive breakthroughs. Now that Yixian had made another breakthrough in his cultivation, once he activated the bloodline of the demonic ape in his body and entered the 6th change of the demonic ape, his peak battle strength would soar to level 6 of the Marquis Immortal Realm. He was only 1 level away from becoming a Marquis Immortal Realm. Then, he would reach the advanced Marquis Immortal Realm. Chapter 42:11. Now, Yixian was at the 8th level of the Undying Realm under normal circumstances. If he wanted to become an official Undying, he still needed to break through 2 levels. According to his estimation, he would need at least 15 Undying level blood essences of ferocious beasts to break through these 2 levels. There was no longer a single immortal rank ferocious beast in this multi-million-mile-wide cosmic void. The only way for him to obtain immortal rank ferocious beast blood essence was to leave this multi-million-mile-wide cosmic void and hunt in other forbidden areas in the starry sky that were even more distant. Yes, of course, in the sealed cave at the bottom of the Shenong Cauldron Domain volcano in his body, There were many corpses of immortal primordial creatures, from ordinary immortal marquis, king, emperor, all the way to quasi-primordial desolation supreme and so on. And there were many of them. However, these remains of primordial creatures that had been dead for a long time couldn't be used to refine blood essences. They could only be roasted or refined into blood and flesh medicine. Hence, if he wanted to obtain new undying level blood essences, going to other forbidden lands further away in this space of billions of miles was the only choice. However, compared to the 6 forbidden lands in this corner of the starry sky, those forbidden lands were much stronger. Every one of them had an official level ferocious beast guarding them. Even if Yi Xian went stealthily by himself and started hunting, it would be fine if there were only a few of them. However, if he wanted to hunt a total of 15 immortal level beasts and use the divine Nong 7-colored flame to condense blood essence on the spot. Once the official level undyings in these forbidden lands were alerted, and the other official level undyings in other forbidden lands would join forces, then even if Yi Xian had the ability to deal with them, he would be hard-pressed. From his point of view, it wasn't the right time to officially start a war with these official level undyings in space. No matter what, he had to improve his strength a little more. The entire Mulberry planet had 12 major tribes, thousands of mountain villages, and tens of millions of primordial survivors. He had to take another step forward before the time was ripe. According to Yi Xian's original plan, after sweeping through all 6 of the forbidden areas in the starry sky and dominating this corner of the starry sky for hundreds of millions of kilometers, he would bring his subordinates and hibernate in Mulberry star. He would refine all of the fierce beast materials into great flesh and blood medicine, and then all of them would be refined. He went into seclusion to cultivate and break through. At the same time, Yi Xian himself would do the same. Only when his cultivation and the overall cultivation level of his subordinates had reached a new height would he step out of this corner of the void and begin a new journey. This main line of the plan would not change for the time being. However, Yi Xian needed even more immortal rank vicious beast blood essences. As such, he had to find a balance between the two. Forget it. I'll bring the army here first and carry out the final hunt for the tens of millions of ferocious beasts that fled from the 4 forbidden lands of the starry sky. After that, I'll return to Mulberry Tree and refine the flesh medicine. Muttering to himself, Yi Xian quickly finalized the follow-up details of the plan. As for me, I've swallowed blood essences 3 times in a row. There's still some medicinal power in my blood, flesh, marrow, and bones that I haven't refined. After returning to Mulberry Tree, I can go into seclusion again. At the same time, I'll consume some top-grade purple gold flesh medicine and the all-evil origin liquid as a supplement to start a new breakthrough. Once this breakthrough is successful, I'll only be a small breakthrough away from becoming an immortal marquis in my normal state. The amount of blood essences I need will be greatly reduced. Moreover, since this is a breakthrough, I'll need a bottle of level 21 liquid. As such, if I use the method of condensing blood essences to refine this bottle of level 21 liquid, I'll most likely be able to add some energy from the remains of quasi-desolation powerful beings. If that's the case, I should only need 3 or 4 blood essences to complete the final breakthrough. In other words, I only need to sneak to the edge of the forbidden land further away and kill 4 immortal level ferocious beasts stealthily. That should be enough. With that in mind, Yi Xian no longer hesitated. With a flash of his body, he shot toward the 2nd forbidden land of the starry sky that had just been exterminated. He arrived at his destination in just half an hour. At this time, the battle here had also ended. Gui Hai Dao, Cong Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon experts were assisting the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war. All of this was sped up by Yi Xian's arrival. In just a few hours, it was completely over. After that, Yi Xian waved his hand and summoned the giant life fortress of Long Yi. After having all of his subordinates enter the giant life fortress, he waved his hand and charged towards the tens of millions of forbidden beasts in front of him, each of them looking for a place to hide. Hong! Hong long long! After the giant fortress of life arrived at this area, a loud roar rang out again. The tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree all moved out in all kinds of warships, including the 20,000 demon experts led by Gui Hai Dao and Cong Qingyu. The 8 great guardian deities Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver G were not idle either. Once again, they were blasted out of the Shenong cauldron by Yi Xian. The former's mission was to refine weapons and temper himself, while the latter's mission was to kill all the old monsters among the tens of millions of ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Lands, leaving only a small portion for the dozens of universe-grade survivors on Mulberry Tree to refine their weapons. A bloody battle broke out again in an instant. This battle lasted even longer. After all, the target of the hunt was all the ferocious beasts in the 4 forbidden lands in the starry skies. There were nearly 50 million of them. Moreover, these ferocious beasts of the Forbidden Grounds had long lost their courage after the 14 immortal rank ferocious beast commanders were killed one by one in a short period of time. They had all scattered and found a place to hide. It would take a lot of effort just to drag them out of their hiding places. It would definitely take some time. Yi Xian still did not participate in this battle, but he did not go far away. Instead, he sat cross-legged at the mouth of the Shenong cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog, and deduced the formula of the level 21 liquid that was about to be condensed. In the end, after 3 full days, Yi Xian finally perfectly deduced the formula of the level 21 liquid. This final battle finally came to an end. Chapter 42:12. 3 days later, the final battle was over. Since then, the original 6 forbidden lands of the Starry Sky had completely disappeared, and the tribe of the Desolation survivors on the Mulberry Tree Star had become the only existence in this remote corner of the void, dominating hundreds of millions of miles. Of course, there were still many living stars in this region that were home to ferocious beasts that didn't belong to the 6 forbidden zones. However, regardless of whether it was Yi Xian or the survivors of the primordial era on Sangji planet, none of them planned to kill all of these ferocious beasts. There was no need for that at all. There were already enough ferocious beast corpses on hand. There were nearly 80 million of them, enough for the 12 great tribes on Sangji planet, as well as thousands of strongholds of various sizes. The tens of millions of primordial survivors had refined an ocean's worth of flesh medicine. Moreover, they'd only used up a small portion of the flesh medicine they'd obtained in the previous frenzied refinement. They still had plenty left. After returning to Mulberry Tree Star, the second large-scale flesh medicine refinement exercise was launched immediately. Yi Xian didn't pay any attention to any of this. The flesh medicine they'd refined this time wasn't even worth his attention. According to his instructions, the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree could digest them on their own. As for the 8 Vajras, the flying centipede, old monster Inji, Gue Hai Dao, Song Qingyu and Ingtai, they all entered the farmer god cauldron and fortress of life to cultivate in seclusion again. Their cultivation was still a little weak in the end. There was still a long way to go before they could grow stronger. Yi Xian didn't enter Mulberry Tree. He remained in space outside the planet's atmosphere. After summoning the farmer god cauldron with a wave of his hand, he flashed to the mouth of the cauldron shrouded in 9-colored mist and sat down cross-legged. First he calmed his mind, and then he took out a large amount of cultivation resources. Besides the purple-gold top-notch flesh and blood medicine that he had just refined not long ago, there was also the Netherworld Furnace Lotion, all evil origin liquid, and so on. In the end, after pondering for a while, Yi Xian even cut off a small piece of the blood and flesh of the purple-gold rat from the sealed cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space inside the cauldron. He roasted it with the Shenong 7-colored flame until it was golden and oil dripping. After the fragrance of the meat filled the air, he took out the cultivation resources that he had already prepared. Together they chewed and swallowed. After he finished all of this, he closed his eyes and entered a new round of closed-door cultivation to break through. Time slowly passed by. However, at this very moment, Yi Xian had already entered a state where he had completely forgotten about the existence of time. Walala! Hua! Ever since he had swallowed all the cultivation resources that he had prepared, Yi Xian's body had been ringing with the sound of chains. All the cultivation resources had melted and turned into a warm current that finally gathered together in his body. It was like a big river, with a heart-palpitating scorching heat, rolling and surging endlessly in Yi Xian's limbs and bones. Although it was painful, Yi Xian had long been accustomed to this kind of pain. It did not affect his mind at all. Currently, his entire mind was immersed in the comfortable feeling of opening up the meridians in his body and breaking through the shackles of his fleshly body to his heart's content. It was as if he was intoxicated. His entire fleshly body was emitting rays of dazzling light. The 1.08 billion pores on his body were all flowing with auspicious aura. Finally, with a loud noise in Yixian's mind, the scorching energy that had been rolling and surging in his meridians was completely exhausted at this moment. When Yixian opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system notification suddenly rang in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the Qi and Blood Body. Current realm. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Following this breakthrough in his cultivation, Yixian's current cultivation strength had already reached the perfection of the 9th step of the Immortal Realm under normal circumstances. Once he activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body, he would be able to break through one realm and attain the strength of level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm. If he entered the 6th change of the demonic ape bloodline, his peak battle strength would soar again and reach level 6 Marquis Immortal Realm. He would enter the late stage of Marquis Immortal Realm. Although this breakthrough was only a small level, it was significant to Yixian at this moment. This was because he was about to go to the Forbidden Land of Space that was even further away from the Forbidden Land of Space to hunt immortal level supreme ferocious beasts. As he did not intend to alarm the Marquis Immortals in the Forbidden Land of Space, he set his target as 5 blood essences for now. Besides, the only way to hunt them was by stealth. Since he was going to hunt them in stealth, he had to ensure that he could kill them in one hit. Otherwise, once a battle broke out, he would undoubtedly be exposed. And the targets were all immortal level supreme ferocious beasts. To ensure that he could kill them in one hit, Yixian had to possess the strength of Marquis Immortal Realm, even if it was only at level 1. Before this breakthrough, he had activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body, and displayed the demonic ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms. However, his strength was only at level 9 Immortal Realm. If he wanted to reach level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm, he would have to perform the first change of the 9 changes of the demonic ape. However, once he did so, his body size would increase by 10 times, reaching a height of 300 meters. Although 300 meters was not huge, it was still too eye-catching for stealth hunting. If the target was too big, even if he hit his body, his aura could be leaked, and thus his whereabouts would be exposed. However, this problem was perfectly solved now. After breaking through another level, Yixian's strength had reached level 9 Immortal Realm Perfection. If he wanted to possess the strength of an Marquis Immortal Realm Perfection, he only needed to activate the demonic ape bloodline in his body. There was no need for him to perform the 9 changes of the demonic ape bloodline ability. In this way, his body would only be around 30 meters tall, which would make it much more convenient for him to sneak around and hunt. After ending this round of seclusion, Yixian did not alarm anyone on Sangji Star. He waved his hand and stored the farmer god cauldron into his undying world. Then, with a flash of his body, he shot toward the faraway void of this forbidden land of space. Those even more powerful forbidden areas in the starry sky were obviously not too close to the corner of the starry sky where Sangji was located. Yixian had long since been mentally prepared for this. Even so, the boring interstellar travel that followed still left him speechless. Although he was traveling in his normal state and did not use the void-shattering shuttle or the wild dragon ship, his speed was not considered slow as he was at level 9 Immortal Realm Perfection. Just like that, they traveled at full speed for a full 10 days, leaving behind hundreds of millions of kilometers of space behind them. Finally, in the distant space in front of them, a place with densely packed life planets gathered together finally appeared. If there were no accidents, this must be an even more powerful starry sky forbidden area. Chapter 42:13. When he was in the mulberry tree star field, the 6 forbidden lands were not very large in scale. They were basically a dozen life stars with a large number of powerful ferocious beasts gathered in one area. Tens of millions of ferocious beasts were formed under the leadership of 3 to 4 immortal level ferocious beasts. A forbidden land in space. But right now, after Yixian left the mulberry tree star region, he flew through the starry sky for an entire 10 days. After traveling hundreds of millions of kilometers, he encountered this forbidden area in the starry sky. The scale of this forbidden area clearly far surpassed the 6 forbidden areas in the mulberry tree star region. Let's not talk about whether the strongest fierce beast leader in this forbidden land was an Marquis or not, or how many Marquis level undying beasts there were. Just in this relatively large star field, there were more than 100 planets with a large number of ferocious beasts living in them. Judging from this number, there were at least 100 million ferocious beasts in this starry sky forbidden area. According to Yi Xian's estimation, if there were no accidents, the fierce beast leaders in this forbidden land must be marquee-level undying beasts, and there should be more than 2 or 3 of them. If there were more than 2 marquee-level undying beasts, then there should be more than 100 immortal-level fierce beasts, if not more. It just so happened that there were more than 100 life stars in this area. Therefore, if there were no accidents, there should be an immortal-level fierce beast in each of these life stars. Yi Xian didn't enter this area as a human, because if he did, he would undoubtedly be exposed. Although in the vast void outside of the mulberry tree star region, other than the more powerful forbidden areas in the starry sky, there were also more powerful ancient remnant stars. However, in this fragment of void, the primordial remnant and space fierce beasts were obviously enemies. This was a forbidden land under the rule of fierce beasts, so it was unlikely that the primordial remnant would appear here. While he was still a distance away, Yi Xian had already activated the devil-ape bloodline in his body, and showed his 3-headed, 6-armed ancient devil-ape body. Previously, under normal circumstances, his strength was at the peak of the 9th level of the immortal realm. After activating the devil-ape bloodline, his strength was at the 1st level of the marquee level, which was extremely powerful. However, this kind of strength obviously could not be exposed. Otherwise, in this forbidden land in space, it would be like a candle in the night sky. It would be too eye-catching and would bring endless trouble. Even his 3-headed, 6-armed demonic ape true form could not appear like this, because although most of the ferocious beasts inhabiting this corner of the void of the primordial world fragment were rare species in the 3 main planes of the starry sky, and had a strong bloodline of primordial creatures, the 3-headed, 6-armed demonic ape was too powerful. After all, the ancient devil ape was too famous. Even in this fragment of void space, there were no descendants of the ancient devil ape bloodline. Once Yi Xian showed up with his 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape body, he was afraid that it would immediately cause a sensation and cause a lot of trouble. It would undoubtedly be difficult to carry out the follow-up stealth hunting. Just as he carefully spread out his divine sense, Yi Xian found that among the hundreds of life stars of fierce beasts in front of him, there was a life star inhabited by fierce beasts. Most of them were violent star apes. Moreover, this life star, where most of the fierce beasts were violent star apes, happened to be located at the edge of this star field. The size of the life star was not the largest but not the smallest either. It was about the size of a medium. It could be said that it was the best place to target. Therefore, after pondering for a while, Yi Xian immediately took the other 2 bodies of the devil ape body, which was the skeleton body and the black fog body, into his body. Only the body of flesh and blood was left, and he slightly changed it to look similar to the violent star apes. As for the strength of his cultivation, he hid it around the sector lord level. It was not too low but not too high. If it was too high, it would arouse suspicion. If it was too low, even if he entered the life star where the violent star apes lived, he was afraid that he would not be able to get close to the immortal level fierce beasts that ruled this life star. Yes. After everything was ready, Yi Xian checked it and was very satisfied. Then without delay, his figure flashed and rushed to the target life star in the right corner of the void space. After entering this forbidden space, the fierce beast's activities in the void space became extremely frequent. From time to time, there would be a fierce beast of different forms passing by. Although they belonged to different races and had different bloodlines, they were all subordinates of the same forbidden space. Therefore, these fierce beasts of space would obviously not have conflicts with each other casually. Of course, this kind of thing could not be stopped. After all, fierce beasts were naturally bloodthirsty and warlike. At this time, Yi Xian was a violent star ape with the cultivation of sector lord level. He was only 2 realms away from the immortal level. Even in this powerful forbidden space, such a cultivation strength could be considered to be above the middle level among the subordinates of the immortal level fierce beasts of a life star. Therefore, he entered the target life star without any hindrance. After finding a place to hide, he spread out his soul consciousness silently. Soon he captured the aura of 2 immortal level fierce beasts. In this life star there were 2 immortal level fierce beasts. They were both violent star apes, and they happened to be together at this moment. To Yixian, this was the best time to make a move. Retracting his soul consciousness, Yixian used his violent star ape form and tried his best to get close to them. When he was tens of thousands of li away from them, he was stopped by their guards. Then he turned around and left. He went to the back of a mountain and directly activated the energy in his body. Teleport. Xiu. With Yixian's current cultivation strength, he could accurately teleport from tens of thousands of li away. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the two immortal-level violent star apes, less than 100 meters away from them. At this moment, as Yixian used his full strength to teleport, his immortal level 1 immortal level aura was fully displayed. All the violent star apes on the life star could feel it. All the ferocious beasts on the planet were dumbfounded when they sensed the terrifying aura of the Marquis-level Undying Realm. They didn't know what was going on. Why would a Marquis-level Undying Realm commander of a forbidden land come here? As for the two immortal-rank Starry Sky Berserk apes in front of Yixian, they were completely dumbfounded in an instant. They stared at Yixian with their mouths agape. They also didn't understand why a powerful Marquis immortal would suddenly appear in the core area of their lair. Chapter 42:14. Yixian's unexpected appearance caused the two immortal-rank Starry Sky Berserk apes to be shocked. Soon after, the two of them fell into a state of shock. They didn't realize that danger was coming, and they never thought that the Marquis-level Undying in front of them would attack them, because they were all space-violent apes, and the same blood flowed in their bodies. Although the origin of the other party was a bit strange, he was still an elder of the same race. However, in the next instant, before the two of them could recover from their bewilderment, an unforeseen event suddenly occurred. Boom! Boom! Ruthless. Yixian, who had quietly appeared, didn't hesitate in the slightest. Taking advantage of the fact that the other party had yet to recover from his shock, he immediately threw out two punches. The strength of the Marquis Immortal was undoubtedly revealed, and at such a close distance, the two immortal-level Starry Sky Berserk apes didn't even have time to react. They were blasted apart, turning into two clouds of bloody mist. One of them didn't even have the time to make a sound, and the other only let out a short howl. The howl had only just started, but it had already come to an abrupt stop in an instant. Who? After that, Yixian waved his hand, and two Shenong 7-colored flames surged out of the Shenong cauldron in his body. One on the left and one on the right, they enveloped the two clouds of blood mist from the explosion of the two undying space-violent apes and started the blood essence condensation immediately. The whole process was very fast, and in less than 3 breaths the blood essence condensation was completed. As Yixian waved his hand again, the two Shenong 7-colored flames flew back into his body, and at the same time, two nascent soul fist-sized blood essence beads shot back into Yixian's Shenong cauldron and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the two immortal-rank Starry Sky Berserk apes were instantly killed by Yixian's thunderous methods. Moreover, they were condensed into two nascent fist-sized ferocious beast blood essences on the spot and absorbed them into his body. After doing all this, Yixian didn't stay for a moment. His figure flashed, and before all the beasts on the entire planet could react, he had already arrived outside the atmosphere of this planet. Without any hesitation, he turned around and rushed to the nearest life planet. The goal of this mission was to get 5 undying-level blood essences, and now he had already gotten 2. He still needed 3 more, which meant that after this, Yixian had to kill 3 undying-level beasts as quickly as possible. It wasn't realistic to plan slowly and carefully like before because the deaths of the 2 Starry Sky apes would be discovered very soon. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happened, this matter would be reported at the first possible moment. At that time, the Marquis Undyings in this powerful forbidden area would be immediately alarmed. At that time, with a single order, at least 100 immortal-level beasts in the 100 or so life stars would all move out. Adding on 2 to 3 Marquis Undyings, even if Yixian was able to escape unscathed, he would probably be in deep trouble, would be in a difficult situation. What he needed to do now was to kill 3 more immortal-level ferocious beasts, as soon as possible before the Marquis Undying in this powerful forbidden area of space noticed this matter. As long as he could accomplish this goal, even if the Marquis Undying was still alarmed at the last moment, Yixian would be able to immediately withdraw. If he retreated, he wouldn't be tied down here. With this thought in mind, Yixian activated his maximum speed. In just a few breaths of time, he arrived at the nearest life star. Without the slightest hesitation, he plunged into the atmosphere of the life star. With a spread of his divine sense, he instantly locked onto the position of the immortal rank ferocious beast leader in this life star. What surprised him again was that there were actually two immortal rank ferocious beasts in this life star that was mainly dominated by the subblood greedy wolf bloodline. Although they were not together at the moment, they were not far from each other. As long as he killed these two undying level subblood greedy wolves, Yixian only needed to kill one more before retreating. Xiu! Yixian's figure appeared beside one of the inferior blood-greedy wolves. Without the slightest hesitation, he threw a punch at the same time. Hong! This guy had just turned around, but before he could make a sound, his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Who? Yixian immediately waved his hand and guided a strand of Shenong 7-colored flame from his body, wrapping around the blood mist. In less than 3 breaths' time, he had already condensed it into a blood essence bead the size of an infant's fist. In the next instant, just as this strand of Shenong 7-colored flame and the blood essence bead was absorbed into his body, an extremely shrill wolf howl came from behind him. Awoo! Space Berserk Ape, what do you want? He turned around and saw that the other undying level subblood greedy wolf on this life planet had actually taken the initiative to attack him. Although Yixian's body was emitting undying level power and he was no match for it, this was a powerful space forbidden land after all. However, there were also 3 marquee immortal rank ferocious beast commanders, and they would be here soon. Therefore, this subblood greedy wolf seemed to be fearless, giving Yixian a feeling that it was completely fearless. Since you've delivered yourself to me, it's good. This saves me the trouble of searching for you. With a cold smile, Yixian's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of this undying level subblood greedy wolf in the blink of an eye. Without saying anything, he directly threw a punch. Hong! Who? Under Yixian's full-force punch, the opponent's huge body directly exploded into a cloud of blood mist that quietly dispersed. At this moment, Yixian suddenly waved his hand, and a strand of Shenong 7-colored flame was guided out from the Shenong cauldron in his body, directly wrapping around the spreading blood mist. Then the blood began to flow. Condense. Everything was still completed in less than 3 breaths' time. In the end, Yixian waved his hand, and this strand of Shenong 7-colored flame that was guided out directly entered his body. At the same time, it brought back a blood essence bead the size of an infant's fist and also entered the Shenong cauldron. Since then, he had killed 4 immortal rank ferocious beast leaders in a short period of time in this powerful forbidden land of stars. 4 more immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences appeared in the Shenong cauldron in his body. There was only 1 blood essence left. However, according to Yixian's estimations, his arrival should have already been exposed at this moment. Whether or not he would be able to successfully obtain the last piece of blood essence was instantly filled with suspense. Roar! Roar! Screech! It was also at this moment that 3 earth-shattering roars and screeches of ferocious beasts suddenly came from the 3 superstars of this powerful starry sky forbidden area. Even though they were separated by an endless void, the sound traveled billions of miles, causing countless powerful ferocious beasts in the surrounding hundreds of life stars to tremble in fear. The beasts all trembled. Chapter 42:15. Although Yixian's speed was extremely fast and he immediately rushed to the second planet after killing the 2 starry sky berserk apes, he didn't delay at all and used the fastest speed to kill the 2 immortal level inferior blood-greedy wolves. However, in the end, the immortal level blood essence in his hands reached 4. But, as expected, he was exposed at this time. A figure rushed out from each of the 3 giant ferocious beasts planets around the central territory of this powerful forbidden area of the starry sky. There was an earth-shattering roar from each of their mouths, which shook billions of miles. Hundreds of millions of ferocious beasts on hundreds of ferocious beast planets were all trembling. As for the immortal rank ferocious beasts on the hundreds of ferocious beasts planets, they immediately roared as if they were responding. Their figures turned into silhouettes and rushed out from the atmosphere of the ferocious beasts planets that they ruled. Moo! From the giant planet on the left of the central region, a green bull rushed out. Its body was 100,000 feet long. Its strength was overwhelming, and its cultivation level was at level 7. It was the strongest of the 3 undying level marquee in this forbidden space zone. Roar. On the right, a starry sky blood crocodile roared as it emerged from the atmosphere of the giant planet it resided in. Its body was also 1 million zhang long, and its slender tail was covered with barbs, causing people to shudder. Perhaps even a giant planet would not be able to withstand a single whip from this giant crocodile tail. Its cultivation level was at level 4 Marquis. C. Within the huge star behind the central region, there was an incomparably sharp roar. The official level Undying was a black beetle, its bloodline was unknown, and it was small, only 30,000 meters. However, its strength wasn't weak, reaching the sealed level. Level 3 Marquis was at the peak of the initial stage. It was only one step away from the middle stage of the Marquis level. At this moment, just as Yixian's figure charged out from the atmosphere of the second target planet, the 3 immortal level ferocious beasts roared furiously as they rushed towards his location. Although they were still tens of millions of miles away, with the cultivation and strength of these 3 ferocious beast commanders, they would be able to arrive in a few breaths at most with their extremely fast speed. In addition, as far as the eye could see, there were 1 to 2 immortal level ferocious beasts on each of the hundreds of life planets that covered hundreds of millions of kilometers of space. They rushed out from the atmosphere of the planets and roared furiously. They were like a tide as they roared towards Yixian 3 Marquis level, Undying level beasts and hundreds of ordinary Undying level beasts. This kind of beast formation was terrifying. Even with Yixian's current strength, even if he performed the 6th transformation of the 9 transformation Demon 8 bloodline, he would be in a difficult situation if he was surrounded. He might even be severely injured. However, he didn't have a choice. It wasn't time to retreat yet. Now Yixian's strength had reached level 9 pinnacle of the Undying level. If he wanted to break through to level 1 Marquis level Undying level, he would need to make a level 21 liquid. Otherwise, the chances of success would be very small if he tried to break through by piling resources. He couldn't make the level 21 liquid like before. According to Yixian's deduction, the success rate of making the liquid with the blood essence as the base was extremely high. However, to make a level 21 liquid, he would need at least 5 blood essences. Now he already had 4 blood essences. He only needed 1 more. If he retreated now, this powerful forbidden land would be on guard. Even if he sneaked in again in a short period of time, he wouldn't be able to succeed in a sneak attack. Instead, it would allow the enemy to investigate thoroughly and then set up all kinds of defense measures. Of course, other than this forbidden area in the starry sky, there were also other forbidden areas in the surrounding areas of the mulberry tree star region. However, Yixian had already searched for more than 10 days before encountering this place. Who knew how long it would take for him to find the next forbidden area in the starry sky? The best choice was to take advantage of the time before the 3 official level Undyings arrived and kill another Undying level beast as quickly as possible. This was indeed risky. After all, even if he succeeded in killing an Undying level beast, Yixian would need a certain amount of time to condense the blood essences on the spot. The fastest would be half a breath. And with the speed of the 3 Marquis level Undyings, they would at most take 7 to 8 breaths to reach him and surround him. Following closely behind, the other 100 Undying level beast leaders would arrive soon. When that time comes, once the second layer of encirclement was formed, Yixian would be in an even worse situation. I'll give it my all. Isn't it just 3 Marquis level Undyings? Even if there's an army of thousands, I will still advance. As long as there's a chance, I won't let it go. Fiercely gritting his teeth, Yixian's body suddenly flashed as he raised his head and roared, "See!" Before the roar had even ended, Yixian's body had already disappeared from the spot. He once again teleported with all his strength. In half a breath's time, he traversed hundreds of thousands of miles of space and appeared in front of a beast planet on the left. This beast planet was the closest to Yixian. Previously, a demonic blood-black jackal had already charged out from the atmosphere of this beast planet. It didn't use its extreme speed and instead deliberately slowed down. Obviously, it was waiting for the 3 Marquis level Undyings to arrive and form the first layer of encirclement before charging forward. Alright. However, at this moment he didn't charge forward. Yixian took the initiative to close in and teleported. The moment he appeared, he immediately threw a punch. At this moment, Yixian's berserk energy surged out. The space around him crackled as if it was about to be torn apart at any moment. Rumble! This demonic blood-black jackal was caught off guard and didn't even have time to dodge. In the blink of an eye, its entire body was blasted into a bloody mist and swiftly exploded. Who? Without any hesitation, Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand and a Shunnong seven-colored flame was drawn out from the Shunnong cauldron within him. It completely enveloped the bloody mist that dispersed from the exploding demonic blood-black jackal, and began the refinement of blood essence. Howl! See! Moo! Seeing this scene, the three marquee-level undyings in the distant space were enraged. They simultaneously roared and accelerated. In the blink of an eye they had crossed close to 10 million miles. From the looks of it they would arrive in at most 2 breaths of time. 2 breaths of time passed in the blink of an eye. Who? As Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand, the 7-colored flame in front of him was directly absorbed into his body. At the same time, he also took away an immortal-level fierce beast blood essence that had just been condensed. Chapter 42:16. No matter who you are today, you won't be able to escape. Moo! The green ox was the first to arrive. It was already less than 1,000,000 kilometers away from Yi Xian in the void of the universe. At this moment, a cold voice came out of its mouth, followed by a deep moo. Along with this roar, a green crescent moon slash that was over 3,000 meters long whizzed through the air and cut open the void in its path. Boundless void turbulence gushed out from the cracks and threw the surrounding starry sky into chaos. Boom! Boom! Roar! 1,000,000 miles behind the green ox, the insectoid with an unknown bloodline suddenly let out a fierce roar. A circle of ripples swept out, moving even faster than the green ox's cyan half-moonlight slash. In an instant it enveloped an area of 10 million miles. It covered a huge area of space. A formless binding force came. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly felt his body become sluggish. Even someone as strong as him felt like he was stuck in an endless swamp. Without a doubt, this strange circle of ripples had a special sealing effect on the universe space. Under its power, not to mention a normal undying, even an official-level undying couldn't teleport. This was clearly to trap Yi Xian here at the first possible moment and prevent him from escaping. Moreover, as the weird ripples spread out and covered the entire void within thousands of kilometers, the insect with an unknown bloodline had clearly succeeded. Hong! A little closer, about 1,000,000 kilometers to the right of the void, the starry sky blood crocodile, who was at the 4th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm, didn't say a word. However, its huge crocodile tail, which was full of ferocious barbs, suddenly swung. In an instant the void exploded with thunder, and an invisible and terrifying shockwave shot towards Yi Xian. It shot over from the distance. There were also sharp barbs on the crocodile tail. This was the talent of an official-level undying. Each barb seemed insignificant, but Yi Xian didn't doubt its sharpness at all. Even if a superstar was in front of him, it would be pierced into a sieve by these insignificant barbs. In the blink of an eye, the 3 Marquis Undying-level ferocious beast commanders were all within 1,000,000 kilometers of Yi Xian. They launched a surprise attack from the left, right, and front one after another. However, because of the ripples caused by the mysterious arachnid, with Yi Xian's figure as the origin, the surrounding space within a radius of millions of kilometers had been completely sealed. Not only was he unable to teleport, even if he turned around to escape or dodge, his movements would become extremely sluggish as if he was stuck in a swamp. This seemed to be the end of his life. Seeing this scene, the 100 or so immortal-level beasts that followed closely behind the 3 Marquis Undyings immediately roared in excitement, as if they were certain that Yi Xian wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. In fact, at this moment, Yi Xian's heart was in his throat. The reason why he was so determined to stay and continue hunting for the 5th Undying-level beast blood essence was because he was actually quite confident. This confidence came from his interstellar coordinate jump ability. Previously, when he set off from Sangji Starfield, he had already left an interstellar coordinate jump mark in a remote space near a forbidden area in Sangji Starfield. Facing the 3 official-level undyings approaching at extreme speed, Yi Xian wanted to rely on his interstellar coordinate jump ability to disappear from this place and return to Sangji Starfield. However, the bloodline ripple ability of that unknown bug clan bloodline more than 1,000,000 miles to the left was too strange. Even with his level 1 official level Undying's cultivation base, he felt his body become heavy, as if he was stuck in a swamp. Because of this, Yixian suddenly lost his confidence. If this ability had the same effect on his interstellar coordinate jump ability, then he would be in big trouble today. Unless the headless infant corpse made a move, even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. While feeling apprehensive, Yixian didn't hesitate to immediately order the devouring system in his body to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability. This time, the jump coordinate was the one he had imprinted on the Mulberry G-star field not long ago. Shio! A weak sound broke through the air, and Yixian's 30-meter-tall space-violent ape body disappeared in the blink of an eye. There was no trace to be found, as if it was suddenly erased from this world. Mu! Li! Howl! This scene infuriated the 3 marquee-level Undyings who had just arrived. Their earth-shattering roars and howls resounded incessantly. On the hundreds of ferocious beast planets in the distance, countless powerful space beasts were all scared to the point of prostrating themselves on the ground, trembling at this time. Hundreds of millions of miles away in Sangji star field, a weak light flashed, and the 30-meter-tall space-violent ape appeared instantly. You didn't disappoint this star master. After letting out a long breath, Yixian immediately dispelled the true form of the 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape and returned to his human form. Thinking back to the critical situation just now, he still felt a slight palpitation in his heart. Shio! The next moment, as he waved his hand, Yixian directly took out the farmer god cauldron in his body. With a flash of his body, he arrived at the entrance of the farmer god cauldron, which was enshrouded in 9-colored fog, and sat down cross-legged. With a flip of his hand, 5 blood essence beads, each the size of an infant's fist, appeared in the palm of his right hand. These 5 blood essence beads would be the basic materials for Yixian to refine the level 21 liquid, along with the flesh treasure pulp refined from the remains of the quasi-primordial Almighty Yuan Phoenix treasure body. In addition to these 2 basic materials, according to the formula of the level 21 liquid that Yixian had deduced this time, Yixian would also add a large amount of top-grade precious materials and medicines, as well as a few drops of the all-evil origin liquid and other top-grade body-forging resources in his possession. Although Yixian's experience in concocting the gene cultivation liquid was already impressive, as he had already concocted several vials of the level 20 liquid in one go. However, the method of concocting the level 21 liquid this time was completely different from before. He would use the method of refining the flesh great medicine to concoct the gene cultivation liquid. For him, this was the first time he had concocted the gene cultivation liquid in such a way. In addition, the gap between ordinary undying and marquee undying was like an invisible moat, and there were simply too many variables. Therefore, even Yixian himself wasn't very confident about the success of concocting the level 21 liquid this time. He could only say that it was 50-50 and that it was just a try. Chapter 42:17. Inside the farmer god cauldron, at the bottom of the central domain volcano, whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out continuously. Streaks of dim light shot out from the cauldron above the central domain volcano, and appeared directly above the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano. After a sudden pause, the streaks of light that shot over instantly stopped in midair. Shockingly, they were the various top-notch materials and cultivation resources that Yixian had prepared for the refinement of the level 21 liquid. The flesh and blood elixir refined from the remains of the quasi-desolation Almighty Yuan Phoenix. 5 drops of immortal level ferocious beast blood essences. 5 drops of evil origin elixir. And various other top-grade materials and medicines. All of them were the various resources that Yixian had deduced with the help of the devouring system in his body. Whoosh! The sound of flames whistling rang out. From the flame pool below, a majestic Shenong 7-colored flame whizzed up. In an instant, it condensed into a 7-colored cauldron with a radius of 3 meters. It was small and simple, and it exuded an extraordinary aura. In the next instant, as this small flame cauldron formed purely from the farmer god's 7-colored flame, the 5 drops of immortal level ferocious beast blood essences and other materials and resources that shot out from the mouth of the farmer god cauldron automatically flew up and entered this small flame cauldron that was only about 10 feet in radius. From then on, the refinement of the level 21 liquid began instantly. Not far away, the 8 great guardian deities, Flying Centipede, Patriarch Silver G, and the others who were originally in seclusion were already alarmed. They all walked out of their seclusion cave abodes and stared blankly at the 7-colored cauldron above the flame pool at the center of the central domain volcano. They all looked at each other with puzzlement on their faces. At the same time, there was also a look of great anticipation on their faces. They were even whispering to each other and discussing in private. Boss is doing something big again. Is he going to refine purplish gold top-grade flesh and blood elixirs this time? I don't think so. There's still so much left from last time. He can't possibly use it all up in such a short time. And this time, he didn't use the remains of any powerful primordial creatures at all. Instead, I see many top-grade materials and medicines, and there seem to be 5 drops of blood essences. Don't tell me they're all refined from immortal-level ferocious beasts' flesh and blood? What is this? The flesh elixir is the real good stuff. I heard Boss say that it was refined from the remains of a Luan Feng bird. When Boss concocted the level 19 and level 20 elixir, he would use 1 tube each time. This time he actually used 5 tubes. Boss can't be concocting. No, it should be refining. He can't be refining a level 21 liquid, right? That should be the case. Boss's cultivation base has already reached the 9th level of the sempiternal realm. It's indeed time for him to consume the level 21 elixir. My god, the level 21 liquid. 1 bottle, and it created an official level Undying Warrior. Old Centipede, you're not far from this level. Compared to our leader, you're only 2 small levels away. They all looked at Flying Centipede, who was an ordinary level 8 Undying Warrior. Although this old man didn't say anything, his heaving chest and the burning light in his eyes betrayed his inner feelings. He was so excited that he couldn't be more excited. Boom! 2 hours later, a loud roar resounded above the flame pool. It attracted the gazes of the Flying Centipede, Old Monster Silver G, the 8 great guardian deities, and the others in an instant. At this moment, all 10 of them had burning eyes. They even subconsciously held their breaths and paused for a moment. Along with the huge roar, the cauldron formed by the pure Shenong 7-colored flame above the flame pool dissipated instantly. A stream of 7-colored flames whizzed back to the flame pool below like a river. What remained above the flame pool were 2 round beads the size of infant fists. Although they were the same size as the blood essence of the fierce beasts, they were completely different. The blood essence was blood red and emitted dense chi and blood energy. As for these 2 round beads, although they were also the size of infant fists, they emitted 7-colored lights. There was a dreamy halo on the surface of the beads, emitting an ancient and heavy aura. Level 21 elixir. To be precise, it should be a level 21 elixir. In the past, the elixir produced using the method of genetic cultivation fluid was liquid in tubes, so it was called elixir. Now, using the method of refining flesh and blood medicine, the final product was solid like elixir pills, so it was called elixir pills. However, the effect was the same. It allowed cultivators who walked the path of body cultivation to break through a large human potential shackle when they reached the peak of the 9th stage of the major realm. From there, they could smoothly step into the next major realm. There are actually 2 level 21 elixirs. At this moment, Yixian's voice sounded from the mouth of the Shenong cauldron above the volcano in the central region, revealing a strong sense of surprise. Originally, he thought that it would be good enough if he could successfully refine the level 21 elixir this time. He had only expected to get 1 elixir. However, in the end, not only did he successfully refine the elixir, but he also obtained 2 level 21 elixirs. This was definitely an unexpected surprise. It was only now that he suddenly realized. He had previously underestimated the effect of the Shenong 7-colored flame on various elixirs. The reason why he could obtain 2 level 21 elixirs this time was obviously because of the Shenong 7-colored flame. However, none of this was important. For Yixian, what was important was that he could break through to the first stage of the Marquis realm from the peak of the 9th stage of the Immortal realm to the first stage of the Marquis realm in an instant if he swallowed one of the 2 level 21 elixirs in front of him. This wasn't the strength of the Marquis realm after activating the Demon Ape bloodline in his body and manifesting the true form of the 3-headed 6-armed Demon Ape. This was a realm that he could reach in his normal state, which was absolutely different. Whoosh! The next moment, A high-grade small space box shot out from the mouth of the Shinong cauldron, above the volcano in the central region. After entering the belly of the volcano, it directly took one of the 2 level 21 elixirs into it. Then it whizzed back and was carefully stored in Yixian's body. Immortal Realm. Domain. This was a level 21 elixir, which could make a Marquee Realm from the peak of the 9th stage of the Immortal Realm to the Marquee Realm in an instant. For the large races and top powers in the 3 main dimensions of the universe, a level 20 elixir that could make an undying old monster was enough to drive them crazy, let alone a level 21 elixir that could make an undying old monster. If this news spread, even the emperors and emperors of the large races and top powers would be shocked. Chapter 42:18. Yixian stored one of the 2 level 21 pills in a small high-grade spatial bottle. He kept it in his undying world immediately to prevent any loss of medicinal efficacy. As for the other one, it was still floating 100 meters above the pool of flames at the bottom of the central domain volcano. But very quickly, as Yixian put away the other level 21 pill, the second pill transformed into a ray of light that passed through the mouth of the volcano in the central region and shot towards the horizon. Yixian's cultivation base was now at the peak of the Immortal Realm level 9. He had already met the requirement to consume the level 21 pill. Therefore, he planned to consume it immediately and push his cultivation base to the level 1 Marquee Immortal Realm. Many people would never be able to cross this threshold in their lifetime. It was a threshold that many people were not qualified to cross. Flying Centipede's and Old Monster Silver G's expressions changed at the sight of this. Especially Flying Centipede, he raised his head and shouted anxiously, "Boss, I've also reached the level 8 Immortal Realm." In other words, he wanted to remind Yixian that he still had one more breakthrough before he could consume the level 21 pill. Coincidentally, Yixian had 2 of them. They were on the same side. It was better to keep the goodies within the family. Yes, yes, yes. Just as the Flying Centipede finished his sentence, Old Monster Silver Crest quickly added, "Boss, Old Centipede is right. He's still one small stage away from breaking through. As for me, although I'm only at level 2 of the Immortal Realm, I'm about to reach level 3. Counting the distance, I'm about to reach level 9. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Actually, it's not that far. Get lost. You're only at the early stage of the Immortal Realm. Do you want to snatch the level 21 pill from me?" Flying Centipede was enraged when he heard Old Monster Silver G's words. He kicked Old Monster Silver G to the ground. It made sense. When he was captured by Yixian and locked in the prison at the bottom of the central domain volcano, he was already at the level 6 Marquee Immortal Realm. However, Old Monster Silver G was only at the half-step Immortal Realm. Flying Centipede had witnessed his breakthrough into the Immortal Realm with his own eyes. Now that he didn't even have a single level 21 pill in his hands, he actually wanted to interfere. How could he tolerate this? In fact, even the eyes of the 8 Vajra who were merely sector lords turned red when they saw the level 21 pill in Yixian's hand. As soon as Old Freak Inji finished his words, they wanted to say something to make their presence known. Although their cultivation base was far weaker than Old Freak Inji's, after all, Old Freak Inji had been with Old Freak Inji for a long time. Perhaps Old Freak Inji would really give it to them, but now, when they saw that even Silver Pole had been kicked to the ground, all 8 of them shrunk their necks and didn't dare to make a sound. Old Monster Silver G was an Immortal Realm expert after all. If the 8 sector lords jumped out and wanted to snatch the level 21 pill from Flying Centipede, this old man would probably go crazy on the spot. This level 21 pill will be kept by this Star Lord for now. Just when Old Monster Silver G crawled up from the ground, Yixian's voice came from the sky above the volcano. This kind of top-notch resource can be used by anyone who has reached a certain cultivation level in the future. This extra one should belong to Flying Centipede soon. Alright. But it doesn't matter. If this Star Lord can refine 1 cauldron, I can refine 2 cauldrons, 3 cauldrons, or even more. I will gradually store them in the future. All you need to do is to cultivate diligently and raise your cultivation level as soon as possible. You're really giving it to me? Haha. The moment Yixian finished speaking, Flying Centipede jumped up from the bottom of the volcano in the central region and laughed loudly. "Thank you, boss, thank you, boss." At the side, whether it was Old Monster Silver G or the 8 Vajra who were merely sector lords, they all looked at him with resentment. After sighing for a while, they didn't say anything else and turned around to return to their respective cave residences. They were all clearly agitated and were about to enter seclusion again and go crazy. They were going to cultivate crazily. At the entrance of Shenong Cauldron, Yixian sat cross-legged in the 9-colored mist at the entrance of the cauldron. In his hand, he held a 7-colored bead that was the size of an infant's fist. It was the level 21 pill that he had just refined. He took a deep breath and adjusted his emotions. Once he had completely calmed down, he no longer hesitated. With a lift of his hand, he directly tossed the level 21 pill into his mouth. The moment the pill entered his mouth, it instantly transformed into a warm current that flowed down Yixian's throat. After entering his stomach, it automatically circulated rapidly in all his limbs and bones in his body. Everything was familiar to him. The only difference was that as he was advancing from an ordinary undying to a marquee undying, Yixian's body was stimulated by the medicinal power of the level 21 pill. The invisible shackles of the human body's potential were especially thick and strong. The clanking sounds of the shackles were especially ear-piercing. As for the warm current formed by the medicinal power of the level 21 pill, when it circulated rapidly in his body, the piercing pain it brought was even more intense. However, all of this wasn't a problem to him. Time slowly passed by. Yixian's entire mind was focused on this breakthrough. Unknowingly, an entire day had passed. When the scorching energy circulating endlessly in his body finally disappeared completely, Yixian subconsciously opened his eyes. In his mind, the familiar system notification didn't sound. This made his heart skip a beat. At first, he thought that this breakthrough had failed, which meant that he could only take another level 21 pill. This was too much of a waste. After all, it wasn't an ordinary resource. However, in the next moment, a muffled sound of thunder suddenly came from the sky above his head. Looking up, he saw an extremely dense tribulation cloud condensing. He immediately understood. It seemed that from the marquee undying level onwards, even if one's cultivation had already broken through, one still had to endure a round of tribulation before it could be considered a true breakthrough. This didn't matter as long as he didn't fail. Screech! As his heart relaxed, Yixian raised his head and let out a screech. He stood up and waved his hand to put away the Shenong Cauldron under his feet. After that, he directly charged towards the dense tribulation cloud that covered an area of 10,000 miles. Rumble! Kacha! In the next moment, an earth-shattering explosion of thunder sounded out, followed closely by an incomparably clear sound of lightning. A blazing bolt of lightning that was over 30 meters thick instantly smashed down and landed on Yixian's body. Chapter 42:19. The lightning that struck down from the lightning tribulation was light gold in color. It was 30 meters thick and completely submerged Yixian's entire body. After all, it was the heavenly tribulation of a marquee, so the destructive power contained within the lightning tribulation was truly terrifying. Even with Yixian's strong body, he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Fortunately, there was only one wave of tribulation lightning this time. Otherwise, even he would have to suffer a great deal of it. When the thick black tribulation clouds in the distant sky above his head dispersed, Lin Xian waved his hand. The clothes on his body, which had been destroyed by the tribulation lightning, instantly looked brand new. At this moment, the familiar sound of the system notification rang out in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the ancient Dongshu formula. Current level. Level 1 Marquee Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the body's energy and blood. Current level. Level 1 Marquee Immortal. This time, not only did the great heavenly tribulation of the immortal stage not cause the slightest bit of damage to his original body, it even caused the remaining level 21 pills in his body, as well as the medicinal effects of various top-notch heavenly and earthly treasures, to be completely stimulated. In an instant, Yixian's cultivation was completely consolidated and stabilized. He was stubborn. Before this, his original body strength was at the peak of level 9 of the immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again, directly reaching level 1 of the Marquee Immortal Realm. If he performed the 9 demon ape transformation and reached the 6th transformation, he would instantly reach level 7 of the Marquee Immortal Realm. Now, as his original strength broke through again, he reached level 1 of the Marquis Immortal Realm. As for the current Yi Xian, once he activated the Devil Ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation of the Devil Ape, his peak combat strength would be able to reach the 8th level of the Immortal Realm. He was only a small breakthrough away from the 9th level of the Immortal Realm. Even to the point where he could feel the terrifying strength of an Emperor-level Undying, he was only 2 levels away from it. After activating the Demon Ape bloodline and entering the Demon Ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms, and performing the 6th transformation of the 9 Demon Ape transformation bloodline, his peak battle strength has reached the 8th level of Marquis Immortal. As he felt the boundless and terrifying energy within his body, Yi Xian muttered to himself, "If I add on the Fallen Sky Bow and other supreme abilities, as well as the Shinong Cauldron and other powerful treasures, even if it's an Undying Emperor, this Star Master will be able to fight him head-on. Even if the enemy is only at Emperor level 1 to 3. Killing him in battle isn't impossible. Unless you meet a late-stage Emperor level 7 to 9, you have to flee, because you can't win unless the infant corpse attacks." As he spoke to hear, Yi Xian tightly clenched his fists. An incomparably strong sense of confidence suddenly surfaced in his heart. However, that's all it is. A vast expanse of space within a radius of 10 billion kilometers is more than enough. Like that powerful forbidden land from before, if it descends again, even if I face the 3 Marquis Immortal Realm Beast Commanders at the same time, I'm confident I can kill them one by one. After all, none of them are at level 8 of the Marquis Immortal Realm. However, I can't be reckless. If I really do that, I'm afraid it'll attract the attention of the other forbidden lands, which won't be good for me. Officially attacking these forbidden lands should wait until I reach Emperor level. Even if I do it while using the 6th transformation of the Demon Ape, that's fine too. If that's the case, I'll only need 2 small steps to break through. It won't take long, so there's no need to rush. Speaking to this point, Yi Xian seemed to suddenly recall something, raising his hand to slap his forehead. I almost forgot about the heaven-swallowing treasure body. Even though I have to stay in the mulberry tree star field on one hand, I have to train in seclusion to raise my cultivation level on the other hand, I have to supervise the 20,000 demon scouts, as well as the tens of millions of survivors in the 12 tribes of the mulberry tree star field. However, the devouring body doesn't have this restriction. Just like in the 3 main star fields, I can let him leave and start devouring to raise his cultivation level rapidly. Furthermore, since this doppelganger was formed through the doppelganger system attached to the devouring system, its innate attributes are incomparably powerful. Now that my original body's cultivation base has made another breakthrough, if I'm not mistaken, the cultivation base of the devouring doppelganger should have synchronized with my original body. Like me, with the strength of a level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm, as long as I'm careful, I should be able to go anywhere in this space. Speaking to this point, Yi Xian didn't hesitate anymore. With a thought, another Yi Xian stepped out from his body. They looked exactly the same. It was the devouring body that had returned not long ago. At such a close distance, the consciousness of the original body and the clone were originally synchronized in real time. What Yi Xian's original body was thinking, the devouring clone completely understood. Immediately, the original body and the clone's gazes met, and they nodded to each other. Then the devouring body didn't hesitate anymore. It turned into a meteor and flew away in the blink of an eye. This time, Yi Xian didn't let him take any of the treasures, including the Weeping Soul Bloodhorn and the Tower of Desolation. He left them all with the original body. After all, the devouring body left this time only to devour all kinds of energy to strengthen itself. Moreover, the cultivation level of the body was synchronized with that of the original body, reaching level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm. With such strength, as long as he didn't go further than 10 billion miles in this space, he wouldn't encounter any danger in the central region. Even if there was danger, even if he encountered a powerful beast at the middle or late stage of Marquis Immortal Realm, with the devouring body's monstrous strength and the invincible war god, even if he couldn't defeat the beast, he could still retreat. Yi Xian was very confident about this. He wasn't worried at all. The devouring body has left. I'm sure when he returns, he'll bring me a huge surprise. Yi Xian muttered to himself as he looked in the direction of the devouring clone. As for the main body, This Star Master's most important mission in this period of time is to push his cultivation from the current first level of the Marquis Immortal to the third level of the Marquis Immortal. Then, once I activate the Demonic Ape bloodline in my body, I'll have the strength of level 4 Marquis Immortal Realm. If I can perform the 6th transformation of the Demonic Ape 9 transformation bloodline, then, my battle strength will instantly reach level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm. With the battle strength of an Marquis Immortal Realm expert, there will be few opponents in this vast space of 10 billion miles. At that time, I believe the overall strength of my 20,000 demon scouts and the tens of millions of survivors on Sangji Star will increase by another level. Chapter 42:20. By the time Yixian returned to Mulberry Orchid, the second planet-wide craze for refining flesh medicine was already over. All of the ferocious beast flesh and blood from the 6 great forbidden zones of the Void Territory within a 100 million mile radius were refined into great flesh and blood medicine, and all of it was distributed. Tens of millions of survivors of the Desolation Era in the 12 tribes of the Mulberry Tree Star, and the thousands of villages of various sizes, had all entered a state of seclusion. They were breaking through the bottlenecks of their cultivation, and rapidly improving their strength. The 20,000 demon scouts led by Gue Hai Dao and Song Qingyu were also in seclusion in the Wild Dragon Fortress. Even the 8 Vajras, the flying centipede, and old monster Inji were in seclusion. There was also Yixian's cosmic warships, such as the tens of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts led by the Mosquito Emperor Shui Ben, as well as the many slimes, weeping soul apes, and so on. Yixian had also distributed cultivation resources suitable for them. Now Yixian had stored all of the warships in his undying world. The kinetic races within the warships had all entered hibernation as well, using this method to transform their bloodlines and promote their own evolution. Yixian was quite satisfied with all of this. In truth, the 12 great tribes on Mulberry Orchid had each left over 10,000 tribesmen to await Yixian's arrival and guard the perimeter of the planet. However, after Yixian returned, he directly sent all of them into closed-door cultivation. In an instant, the entire Mulberry Tree Star became completely silent. All of the survivors of the primordial era entered seclusion, as if they were in a dormant state. They were as quiet as an abandoned planet. Yixian quickly charged out of Mulberry Orchid's atmosphere and sat down cross-legged in space tens of millions of kilometers away. He took out large amounts of materials and began to refine the grade 20 medicine. Now that he'd refined a grade 21 pill, it was naturally a walk in the park for him to refine the grade 20 medicine the same way as before. His goal was to refine 100 vials. That way he wouldn't have enough materials. On the other hand, there were a lot of supplementary materials. The number of top-notch precious materials in Yixian's hands could be said to be an ocean. The key was that there wasn't much flesh and blood left from the Luanfeng bird that was at the level of the ancient Luanfeng. But it didn't matter. He still had a lot of corpses of primordial beings at the level of primordial beings. He just took one out and spent half a day to refine more than 100 vials of blood and flesh paste. With this and the other top-grade precious materials and medicines he had, Yixian had more than enough to refine 100 vials of the grade 20 medicine. The grade 20 medicine could create immortal old monsters. The reason why Yixian wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to concoct 100 tubes at once was because the number of old monsters under his command was increasing. Just the survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree alone numbered more than 30. Not long after Ba Chai, Gue Hai Dao, Song Qingyu, and the Mosquito Prince Shui Ben, the 8 great guardian warriors and the others would also step into the universe grade. Naturally, it wouldn't be so fast on the 3 main star planes of the current era. However, there was a blood medicine here. Furthermore, it was refined by Yixian using the Shenong 7-colored flame, and the blood and flesh of immortal grade dire beasts. The effect was simply too strong. It greatly increased the cultivation speed of Gue Hai Dao and the other subordinates. Once the cultivation base of these subordinates reached the Universe 9 grade, they would need a vial of level 20 liquid. Of course, they wouldn't need the level 20 liquid. They could also break through and ascend to the immortal grade using their own cultivation techniques or bloodline evolution. However, that would be too slow. They would have to wait and see. Fate. If they had a vial of the grade 20 vials, they could follow the path of body tempering and use body tempering to evolve their bloodline and cultivation techniques. Breaking through to the immortal grade from the universe grade 9 great perfection was just around the corner. Yi Xian had prepared 100 vials of the grade 20 vials for Gui Hai Dao and the other subordinates. According to his estimation, 100 vials would only be enough for a short period of time. As time passed, it would definitely be far from enough. By then, there would be more than 100 immortal grade old monsters under Yi Xian's command. In the current era's 3 main star planes, they would definitely be comparable to a powerful tribe with a long history or a top-notch power. Even in this void fragment from the ancient desolate era, they would be able to compete with some of the more powerful forbidden areas in the starry skies. It took Yi Xian an entire month to complete the 100 vials of the grade 20 vials of the grade 20 vials. This speed was already very fast. It was equivalent to 3 vials a day. If the grade 20 vials of the grade 20 vials were considered the birth of an immortal grade old monster, then Yi Xian was equivalent to creating 3 immortal grade old monsters a day. This was absolutely frightening. Furthermore, during this month, he would be struck by tribulation lightning 3 or 4 times a day. This was because the grade 20 vials of the grade 20 vials had a liquid tribulation. Every time the grade 20 vials were born, it would be accompanied by a liquid tribulation. Every time, although the main body of the liquid tribulation was the newly concocted grade 20 vials, Yi Xian, as the concoction master, naturally wouldn't be affected. Of course, he wouldn't be spared. In this month, he experienced 100 vials of the liquid tribulation. In the end, he was almost used to being struck by the heavenly lightning. And all of this obviously had its benefits. When this month was about to end, Yi Xian's original cultivation base of rank 1 Marquis Immortal grade actually broke through to rank 2 Marquis Immortal grade after 1 vials of the liquid tribulation. After being struck by lightning for more than 100 vials, his cultivation base actually broke through. This kind of thing was probably unheard of. Even when Yi Xian thought about it, he couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. After this breakthrough, his true battle strength increased greatly again. Before this, his original body strength was at rank 1 Marquis Immortal grade 2. Once he activated the 3-headed, 6-armed ancient demon ape bloodline, his strength soared again, directly reaching rank 2 Marquis Immortal grade. If he used the 9 demon ape transformation and reached the 6th transformation, he would instantly reach rank 8 Marquis Immortal grade. And now, his original cultivation base had another breakthrough, reaching rank 2 Marquis Immortal grade. Once the current Yi Xian activated the Devil Ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation of the Devil Ape, his peak combat strength would reach the 9th level of the Immortal Marquis realm. He was only a small step away from breaking through to the 1st level of the Immortal Marquis realm. He wasn't in a hurry to break through this last small step, so he decided to wait for 1 year to do it. That's right, 1 year. This 1 year wasn't for himself but for Gui Hai Dao, Cong Qingyu, and the rest of the 20,000 demon scouts, as well as the tens of millions of survivors on Sangji Star, to break through their cultivation bases. After all, Yi Xian was the only one who had reached the 1st level of the Immortal Emperor. As for the subordinates under him, their cultivation levels were still the same as before. The second expedition that they had been anticipating was also impossible to carry out. Chapter 42-21. Within a month, Yi Xian had worked hard to concoct 100 vials of level 20 liquid. This meant that he would have 100 immortal level subordinates in the future. It was absolutely significant. Even his own cultivation had successfully broken through again after experiencing an entire 100 liquid tribulations. The current Yi Xian was already an old monster at the 2nd level of the Immortal Marquis realm. If he activated the Demon Ape bloodline in his body, and performed the 6th transformation of the 9 Demon Ape transformation bloodline ability, his battle strength would reach the pinnacle of level 9 Immortal level. He was only 1 level away from having the battle strength of an Immortal level Emperor. Yi Xian wasn't in a hurry to make this breakthrough. He had been making breakthroughs too frequently recently, so he needed to consolidate his state of mind. Therefore, Yi Xian decided to use the remaining time to deduce the formula of level 22 elixir pills. After all, it might be useful soon. But now, he hadn't even figured out the formula of level 22 elixir pills, let alone concoct them. This was really inexcusable. The formula of the gene cultivation fluid would become more and more difficult to deduce as one progressed. Moreover, there was a dividing line between level 20 liquid and level 21 liquid. Before level 20 liquid, the formula of each level would become more and more difficult to deduce, but the difficulty was still bearable. However, from level 21 onwards, the difficulty of the formula deduction increased more and more with each level. It was simply to the extent that it made one's hair stand on end. Yixian didn't spend too much time on the level 21 liquid. With his powerful immortal level spirit sense and the powerful calculation ability of the devouring system in his body, it only took him a few days to deduce the formula of the level 21 liquid. But now, after a whole month, there was still no clue as to how to deduce the formula of the level 22 liquid. However, the more it was like this, the more Yixian refused to believe it. His entire mind was immersed in it, as he fully activated the powerful divine sense of the immortal Marquis realm. Coupled with the powerful calculation ability of the devouring system in his body, he was constantly deducing and had long since entered a state where he forgot about everything. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, another 10 months had passed. Including the previous 2 months, it was close to a year. There were only a few more days left. Yixian had already deduced the perfect formula of the level 22 liquid 4 months ago. It took him 6 months, which was half a year. It was just a formula for a level 22 liquid, yet it took so long to deduce it. This caused Yixian to be greatly shocked. Without a doubt, the subsequent formula of the level 23 liquid would be even more difficult to deduce. This made Yixian feel a strong sense of urgency. Because of this, he didn't stop after he successfully deduced the formula of the level 22 liquid 4 months ago. While the iron was still hot, he started to deduce the formula of the subsequent formula of the level 23 liquid. Now, the formula of the level 23 liquid had been deduced for 4 months. Although it had not been completely deduced, it was at least more than half of it. At this time, the previously scheduled 1-year rest period was about to end. There were only a few days left, so he temporarily stopped the deduction. He planned to find some free time in the future. When he had free time, he immediately followed up on this matter. Yixian planned to use the last few days to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Now, he only needed to make a small breakthrough. Once he entered the 6th transformation of the 9 Devil Ape transformation, he would have the battle strength of an Emperor level 1. This was also a watershed, which was extremely important. After this breakthrough, a new round of comprehensive punitive expedition would begin again. It had been more than a year since he came to this broken void of the desolate ancient world. The day when the desolate ancient world fully descended could come at any time. Yixian's sense of urgency was getting stronger and stronger. He had to improve the cultivation strength of himself and his subordinates as soon as possible. At this time, after close to a year of seclusion, the originally quiet Mulberry Star thousands of miles away was bustling again. After a year of seclusion, the cultivation strength of tens of millions of desolate ancient survivors in the 12 large tribes and thousands of mountain villages on Mulberry Star had improved greatly. As far as the eye could see, there were as many universe almighties as there were dogs. Star lords and domain lords were everywhere. There were even more than 100 realm lords. This time, more than 20 universe-grade powerhouses had appeared. However, the dozens of universe-old monsters who had universe-grade cultivation strength a year ago were still in seclusion and hadn't come out yet. It would probably be a few days before they appeared. Seeing all of this, Yixian was completely at ease. He immediately left Sangji Star, and didn't even stay in the nearby 10 million kilometers. Instead, he went to a forbidden area that was tens of millions of kilometers away that had been exterminated a year ago. He planned to break through in seclusion here. He deliberately stayed far away because he was worried that his breakthrough would cause too much of a commotion. If the pressure of a level 3 Marquis Immortal spread and affected some of the survivors on Mulberry Star who were still in seclusion and in the midst of breaking through, that wouldn't be good. Yes, whoosh. With a flash of his body, Yixian's figure landed on an abandoned planet in the forbidden area of the starry sky. He casually found a mountain peak and sat down cross-legged at the top of it. Then he waved his hand and took out a large amount of items, including several drops of evil origin liquid and 100 cubic meters of top-grade purple gold flesh medicine. Cultivation resources. After swallowing them, he closed his eyes and began his breakthrough. At the same time, just tens of millions of miles away from Mulberry Star, Yixian left Mulberry Star and hid in another direction to begin his breakthrough in a forbidden space tens of millions of miles away. Huge starry fleets also broke through the dim light screen. From behind the light screen, the gray world, one by one, the dark world began to descend upon this place. These fleets were the fleets of various races that had entered the passageway to the desolate ancient world in the Shadow Devil Star region of the second universe. Of course, not all of the fleets had passed through the dim light screen and descended in the Mulberry Star region. Some fleets had gone in other directions of the dark world and hadn't come here yet. Apart from some fleets of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and small forces, the fleets that had come this time were mainly from the various races of the second universe. Apart from the top 10 races and the Dark Turtle tribe of the Sealing race, the fleets of the other 9 races had all arrived. In addition, the Myriad Race Alliance of the first universe had also formed a fleet that was heading in this direction. After a year of interstellar travel, they had also entered the Mulberry Star region. The fleets of the 9 races of the second universe each had a scale of tens of millions of battleships. In total, the number of battleships exceeded 100 million. Chapter 42-22. Although the total number of battleships that arrived was more than 100 million battleships, the dim light curtain that separated the gray world was extremely vast. Therefore, in just less than half a day, more than 130 million battleships of various races had passed through the light curtain and arrived at the Sangji star field. Outside the star field, more than 100 million battleships did not gather together. Instead, they were divided into 3 large groups. In front was the main force. There were more than 100 million battleships. They were vaguely divided into 9 small legions. They were the fleets of the 9 races of the second universe and their respective weaker races. Behind them there were 2 small groups on the left and right. On one side was a fleet of about 20 million battleships from the alliance of 10,000 races in the first universe. On the other side was a miscellaneous army composed of various small forces and many rogue cultivator alliances. The number of battleships was only about 10 million. After the 3 camps, the 2 camps at the back had obviously become vassals. Even if they were unwilling to admit it, the truth was the truth. At this moment, the fleets of the 3 camps broke through the dim light curtain from the gray world and arrived at the Sangji star field. The 2 weaker camps, which had too few battleships, could only watch from a distance. In front of them, heading straight for the Sangji star field, were the 9 races of the second universe. There were more than 100 million battleships in this group. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that the 2 battleships behind had too few battleships, and that the overall strength of the 2 camps was far inferior, and there were several immortal old monsters in each of the 2 camps' fleets, the 9 races of the second universe, which had more than 100 million battleships in front of them, would have turned around long ago, because they had swallowed the fleets of the 2 weaker camps that had been following behind them. In these 2 weaker camps there were more than a dozen immortal old monsters. In front of the army of more than 100 million battleships from the 9 races of the second universe, the number of immortal old monsters was only about 30. If they turned around and wanted to swallow the 2 camps behind them, they would definitely force the 2 weaker camps to join forces. At that time there would be more than 30 immortal old monsters on both sides, and the top battle strength would be equal. The balance of the battle was basically impossible for there to be any obvious conflict. It was precisely because of this reason that the internal strife between the 3 camps had never appeared. Previously, during the long and lonely year of space travel in that dark world, this kind of internal strife did not appear. Then, now that they had entered a new universe void, there was clearly a large amount of life aura in front of them, representing the appearance of external interests. This kind of internal strife naturally. Therefore, it was even more impossible for it to appear. However, the overall strength gap between the 3 camps at the battleship level was too great after all. Even if the spearhead was unanimously pointed outwards and tacitly divided the benefits in this strange starry sky, it was obvious that the leading 9 races coalition army of the second universe would eat the meat, and the weaker Myriad Races Alliance army of the first universe would be at the back. The fleets of the Alliance and the various rogue cultivator alliances followed behind, drinking the soup and eating the bones. Although this situation was infuriating, such was the situation. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he could only admit it. For example, at this moment, as soon as they descended into the starry sky of this universe and confirmed that there was a life star with a strong life aura in front of them, the 2 weaker fleets following behind had reached a consensus. They would not interfere in this first meal and would leave it to the 9 great races alliance of the second universe, which was leading in front of them. The army ate heartily. This was both a kind of helplessness and a kind of expression. Everyone was well aware of it, and they both tacitly agreed and accepted it. In front of them, the 9 Great Races Alliance of the Second Universe, which had a total of more than 100 million battleships, was divided into 9 small legions. These 9 small legions were led by 9 of the top 10 Great Races, including the Dark Turtle Clan, the Blood Dragon Clan, the Green Rock Clan, the Battle Lion Clan, the Inji Clan, the Barbarian Bull Clan, the Golden Eagle Clan, the Colorful Python Clan, the Greedy Wolf Clan, and the Tree Spirit Clan. The fleets of the weaker races that did not belong to the top 10 great races were vassals. Basically, each of the 9 small legions had a fleet of more than 10 million, between 11 million and 12 million. As for the immortal old monsters, each of the 9 small legions had 3 to 4 of them. Right now, in the central flagship of each of the 9 small legions, there were 3 to 4 immortal old monsters gathered and holding a video conference. The object of the conference was Mulberry Star, which was less than 10 million miles ahead. The conference was very short. In less than 10 minutes it was over. Because there was nothing to discuss at all, the more than 30 immortal old monsters from the various races of the second universe in the 9 small legions reached a consensus. They immediately took down the life star in front of them with lightning speed. However, because they had just arrived and were not familiar with this strange starry sky, they obviously needed a guide if they wanted to enter the deeper areas and plunder more resources. Therefore, although the main direction of the conference was that they had to surrender, the group of immortal old monsters had their own opinions on the method of surrender. Some advocated a total slaughter. It was enough to take away the resources and continue to move forward, rushing to the next life star. Some advocated to surrender. They regarded the life forms of this life star as a bridge to understand this strange starry sky. They wanted to absorb them and make them guides for the subsequent expeditions. In this way, they could conquer this strange and vast void faster. The final result of the vote was that more than 60% of the immortal old monsters were in favor of surrendering. This matter was settled, and there were no more objections. As the strongest of the 9 great races, the Blood Devouring tribe naturally did not decline in this first battle when the Alliance army entered this strange star domain. The Blood Devouring tribe sent 4 immortal old monsters this time, including the 3-clawed dragon, who had secretly surrendered to Yixian. At this moment, these 4 immortal old monsters had already gathered in the flagship main control room of the Blood Devouring tribe's small fleet of battleships. Through the holographic 3-dimensional screen in front of them, they were looking at Mulberry Star, which was only 1 million miles away. In addition, the powerful consciousness of the 4 immortal old monsters, including the dragon-clawed dragon, had already extended out and swept the entire Mulberry Star across 1 million miles of space. The result of the sweep of their consciousness made them somewhat excited. It seems that the people living on this planet are all remnants of the primordial era. There are quite a lot of them, at least tens of millions. Unfortunately, their cultivation is too weak. The strongest is only at the universe 9th level. Although there are dozens of them, it's obviously impossible for them to break through in the near future. TSK. There's not even a single immortal old monster. This old man is really not interested. There's no need to fight, just surrender. Chapter 42-23. When the 100 million or so warships of the 3 camps that had descended on the Mulberry G space zone passed through the dim light curtain and invaded the Mulberry G space zone from the gray world on the other side of the light curtain, the survivors of the desolate antiquity era on the Mulberry G space zone noticed it immediately. As the huge fleet of the 3 great factions headed toward the Mulberry G star from the edge of the dim light screen, more than 30 high-ranking members of the 12 great tribes, who had been in seclusion, were awakened by the powerhouses of their respective tribes and came out of seclusion almost at the same time. However, they soon discovered that they couldn't contact their lord for the time being. This fleet of more than 100 million battleships clearly came from the same world as their lord. In other words, they were the most powerful fleets of the 3 main planes of the universe, and they were rapidly approaching. Faced with this situation, the 30-odd high-ranking members of the 12 great tribes, who had just come out of seclusion and were all at the peak of the universe 9th grade, panicked for a while. But very soon, when the 4 immortal old monsters of the Blood Devouring clan unleashed their soul consciousness and swept across the entire Mulberry G star in an unbridled manner, they suddenly stopped panicking and regained their calm in just a few breaths of time. These 4 spirit consciousness auras were clearly only at the immortal realm. Since that was the case, what was there to be afraid of? Speaking of which, the 30-odd of them could be considered half-step immortal realm cultivators. In fact, their cultivation base was actually not much different from the other parties. Wasn't it just a few small ranks? In the past year of seclusion, which one of them hadn't broken through a few small ranks? In that case, the difference between them and these four fellows who had shrouded the Mulberry G-Star with their spirit consciousness was only about a year or so. If they had a year, they would definitely catch up with the other party. If they had another year, they would definitely leave the other party behind. How could there be any fear in his heart when he thought about it this way? Furthermore, there was an extremely powerful master behind the Mulberry G-Star. Even if 40 immortal old monsters attacked at the same time, they definitely wouldn't be a match, let alone 4 immortal old monsters. Half a day ago, their master had still been here, lingering in the void thousands of miles away in another direction, as if he was deducing something. Although they didn't know where he was now, it was obvious that he had only left temporarily. Perhaps he would return immediately after turning around. When this thought surfaced in their minds, the 30-odd high-ranking members of the tribes were completely certain. In fact, they weren't the only ones. On the entire Mulberry G-Star, tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era in the thousands of mountain villages of various sizes were all thinking the same thing. After all, Yi Xian's strength had been deeply rooted in their hearts. In just a few days, he had broken through the 6 forbidden zones and killed all the immortal rank ferocious beasts. All of this had left a deep impression on them. It could be said that in the face of this powerful fleet of battleships, the tens of millions of survivors of the desolation on the Mulberry G-Star, after the initial brief panic, quickly calmed down and did not intend to pay any attention to it. They continued to do what they were supposed to do. Perhaps their lord would come back soon. Master would take care of it. It had nothing to do with them. The immortal realm was the primordial era immortal realm, survivors of millions of survivors of the various mountain villages in the various mountain villages stronghold. After a brief moment were stunned. Immortals of survivors of the mountain villages were, after immediately immortal. Captive? Was this a joke? The commander of this powerful fleet was too funny. This so-called captive. Was he talking about himself? That was probably it. Master had a bad temper. Taking advantage of his absence, he actually sent a fleet to capture tens of millions of his subordinates. What was even more infuriating was that the leader didn't even have the strength of an immortal marquis. A few ordinary immortals had come out to act tyrannically. There were so many of them. Master definitely wouldn't tolerate this. Thinking of this, the tens of millions of experts on the Mulberry Tree Star all showed gloating smiles on their faces. An incomparably joyful atmosphere quickly grew in the atmosphere of the entire star, spreading and spreading out. None of this escaped the divine senses of the immortal old monsters of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, and it was clearly reflected in their minds. In fact, the 4 of them weren't the only ones who saw this scene. At this moment, within the 3 camps that had already stopped a million miles away from Sangji Star, there were a total of over 60 undying old monsters, as well as even more universe old monsters, sector lord old monsters, domain lord old monsters, and star lord old monsters. At this moment, almost all of them had released their divine sense or were just an honorable. Or they were secretly sweeping the scene in the atmosphere of the Mulberry G-Star. Therefore, there were simply too many great beings of the various clans who saw this scene. However, the scene captured by his divine sense was indeed too strange, facing the invasion of a powerful fleet of battleships, and their overall strength was far weaker than the enemy's. It could be said that the difference was too huge. There was no comparison at all. These survivors of the primordial era were actually in the mood to laugh, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 people who were laughing. Tens of millions of people spread across the entire star without exception. They were all laughing. Such a strange scene instantly made everyone's jaws drop. The 4 immortal realm old monsters of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, who were in charge of this battle, even carefully scanned the entire life star in front of them with their divine consciousness, inside and out, with slight worry. They even did the same for some of the other abandoned stars around this star, to prevent overly powerful beings from lurking on these abandoned stars and being carelessly overlooked. However, the final result was not unusual at all. In the life star in front of them with tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era, the most powerful beings were indeed more than 30 universe grade 9 perfection fellows. Moreover, these 30 half-step immortal old monsters were obviously the core higher-ups of more than a dozen top forces on this planet. This was the result of the Divine Senses sweep. It was clearly displayed. This result made the three-clawed flood dragon and the other immortal old monsters of the Blood Devouring clan feel completely relieved. While he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, there was also a wave of anger that suddenly rose in his heart. As immortal old monsters, they were actually frightened by a group of primordial era survivors who obviously had some mental problems just now. If this matter were to spread, it would be really embarrassing. Even if it didn't spread, they obviously felt uncomfortable in their hearts, and their chests were stifled. Chapter 42-24. In the starry sky forbidden zone tens of millions of miles away from Sangji Star, on the abandoned planet that Yixian had chosen to use for his seclusion breakthrough. Hua! Walala! At this moment, Yixian was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed on the peak of a giant mountain on this abandoned planet. Almost half a day had passed since he had started his seclusion cultivation. The few drops of all evil origin liquid he had swallowed earlier, as well as over 100 cubes of purple gold top-grade flesh medicine and other cultivation resources, had already surged within his body after transforming into a vast wave of scorching energy. It had already circulated through several dozen great circulations of energy. During this time, the clanking sound of chains resounded within Yixian's body. An invisible shackle of the human body's potential had appeared within his body after he had swallowed these cultivation resources. As long as he could break through it and tear apart this shackle, Yixian's cultivation strength would make another small breakthrough. However, after his original body's cultivation strength had entered the marquee level, although there were still many shackles of the human body's potential remaining in his body, each one of them had become incomparably tough. They were far from the shackles that had appeared before he had become a marquee-level immortal, so they could be easily broken and torn apart. For half a day, Yixian had been enduring extreme pain from his body. The scorching energy that surged like a river in his body was burning every inch of his flesh and bone at almost every moment. If it wasn't for the fact that he had been through this before, he would have gotten used to this inhumane torture. This time, if it had been anyone else, they would have most likely failed in their breakthrough. For half a day, the clanking sound of the shackles in Yixian's body had not stopped for a single moment. This also meant that the pain he was enduring had not stopped for a single moment. However, at this moment, it was clear that everything was nearing its end. This breakthrough was about to end. Xiu! Xiu xiu xiu! A sound that was so faint that it was almost inaudible rang out. Yixian's body, which had been incomparably dim, suddenly burst forth with an endless radiance. At this moment, the 1,080,000,000 pores on the surface of his body were erupting with dazzling auspicious multicolored energy. His precious body was so dazzling that one couldn't look straight at it. The energy that was as boundless as a great river, and as hot as magma that had been surging through his limbs and bones was finally completely exhausted at this moment. The clanging sounds of the chains that had been going on in his body for half a day came to a complete stop at this moment. Yixian opened his eyes. For the first time since he had broken through, there wasn't excitement in the depths of his eyes. Instead, there was a faint glow of exhaustion. This breakthrough had indeed taken far too much time, and during this period of time, he had been enduring unprecedented extreme pain at every moment. It was hard to explain in words. Fortunately, everything was over at this moment. With the arrival of the breakthrough, the familiar system notification rang in Yixian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient void tactics. Current realm. Level 3 Marquee Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body. Current realm. Level 3 Marquee Immortal. Before this, his original body strength was at Level 2 Immortal Realm. Once he activated the three-headed, six-armed ancient demon ape bloodline, his strength soared to Level 3 Marquee Immortal Realm. If he performed the 9 demon ape transformation and reached the 6th transformation, his strength would instantly reach Level 9 Marquee Immortal Realm. And now, as Yixian's original body broke through again, reaching Level 3 Marquee Immortal Realm, which was the peak of the initial stage. Once he activated the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation, he would reach Level 1 Marquee Immortal Realm. His pinnacle strength would reach Emperor Level 1, crossing a huge realm. He would finally be able to feel the majestic strength of an emperor. An immortal emperor. Although it's only after activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in my body, and performing the 6th transformation of the 9 demon ape bloodline. Clenching his fists tightly, Yixian's eyes burst out with an unprecedented blazing light. At this moment, the passion in his chest was like an avalanche as he raised his head and roared. But no matter what, this is after all the battle prowess that I possess. The next moment, Yixian raised his head and roared, activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body. Roar! As his anger spread out, the power within Yixian's body instantly surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body was like a balloon that was being blown up as it quickly swelled up. An ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared in the void. The aura of its 3 true forms was astonishing. Its body had reached a height of 10 feet. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura it exuded was terrifying. Roar! 9 demon ape transformation. First transformation. With another furious roar, the ancient ape demon's body instantly expanded, reaching a height of 1,000 feet from its previous height of 100 feet. Then similar scenes appeared several times. Roar! 9 demon ape transformation. 4th transformation. A 5th roar rang out as the ancient ape demon's ferocious 3-headed, 6-armed form expanded to a height of 1,000,000 feet after entering its 4th transformation. Roar! 9 demon ape transformation. 5th transformation. Another roar came out, and the ancient ape demon's body grew 10 times bigger, reaching 1,000,000 feet tall before it stopped. At this time its aura had reached the peak of the 9th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm. However, this was still not the end. Yixian couldn't wait to feel the majestic strength of an immortal emperor. The 6th transformation of the ancient demon ape was imperative. Roar! 9 demon ape transformation. 6th transformation. With that final roar, the primordial ape demon, which had already reached a size of 1,000,000 feet, instantly swelled to 10 times its original size, reaching a terrifying height of 10,000,000 feet. This size was definitely comparable to a small planet. The aura emitted from its body suddenly broke through the barrier of a large realm, reaching the pinnacle of the current realm, level 1 of an immortal emperor. Is this the power of an immortal emperor? Feeling the indescribable majestic strength in his body, Yixian lowered his head, his eyes gleaming as he looked at his huge body, which wasn't much smaller than the planet under his feet. He muttered, "Now I feel like I can destroy a small space with one punch. It's not a simple space shattering, but a complete annihilation." Chapter 42-25. After confirming that there was no so-called big shot secretly guarding this life star ahead, the 3-clawed flood dragon immediately sent out a second divine thought voice transmission in shame and annoyance. This time he only gave the other party 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes, if the core higher-ups of the major forces in this life star did not rush out of the atmosphere of the star and come to the void in front of him to kneel down, then, considering the voting result of the more than 30 immortal old monsters of the allied forces of the 9 races, although he could not really kill all the survivors of the primordial era on this life star. However, he could not let go of the dozens of perfect universe rank 9 core higher-ups of the major forces that he had locked onto. As a dignified immortal old monster, he had already sent out 2 consecutive messages. The second time he even asked the dozens of half-step immortal old monsters in this life star in front of him to kneel down and surrender, but they actually dared to ignore it. If he did not kill them, how could he make a warning to others? The 3 minutes passed in a flash. The final result made the 3-clawed flood dragon almost go berserk on the spot. Even the nearly 70 immortal old monsters of the 3 camps who were closely monitoring the situation inside the life star in front of them, as well as the more numerous universe old monsters, sector lord old monsters, domain lord old monsters, and so on. At this time, the expressions on their faces, all of them also revealed strong displeasure and indignation. The indigenous survivors of this life star in front of them were really too unruly, or perhaps it would be more appropriate to say that they did not know the difference between life and death. In the 3 minutes after the 3-clawed flood dragon sent out his second message, the tens of millions of indigenous survivors in the atmosphere of the entire life star clearly heard this warning, but they still did not take it seriously at all. They still did what they were supposed to do. Occasionally, some people would raise their heads to look at the atmosphere above their heads, but their faces were full of ridicule. Roar! Damn it, are all the indigenous survivors of this life-star really idiots? This is so infuriating. In the face of such an embarrassing scene, it was impossible for the three-clawed flood dragon to maintain his dignity even if he wanted to. He immediately roared, his tone full of exasperation. A powerful immortal realm old monster was infuriated to the point of spitting out blood because of a bunch of brainless Aboriginal survivors. He was too unlucky. He originally thought that this battle would be a show of face, but he didn't expect that before the battle even started, he had already lost all his face. At this moment, even his intestines were about to turn green with regret. Against such a group of idiots, not just him, even an official-level Undying wouldn't be able to do anything. He would still be angered to death. What an unlucky year for him to encounter such an unlucky thing. As these thoughts flashed through its mind, the anger in the three-clawed dragon's heart became more and more intense. Before it finished roaring, its figure had already charged forward from the flagship fortress of the Blood Dragon clan under its feet. It turned into a ray of light and charged forward with monstrous anger. The birth stars of life that were millions of miles away shot out. He decided that there was no need to say anything after entering the atmosphere of this star. He didn't want to be angered by this group of idiots and become a joke to the numerous experts behind him. After entering, he would directly make a move and kill all the nearly 100 old monsters in this life star in one fell swoop. This way, he should be able to achieve the effect he wanted. Although this group of Aboriginal survivors had brain problems and couldn't understand human language, they should still be able to understand the bloody facts in front of them. To deal with these stubborn and stupid Aboriginals, he had to use the most direct and most brutal method. Whoosh! A distance of millions of miles was not too far for the three-clawed flood dragon, who was at the 6th level of the immortal realm. In a few breaths, his figure had already turned into a ray of light and shot out. In the blink of an eye, he was outside the atmosphere of this life star in front of him. With just one step, he could step into the interior of the life star and kill wantonly. At this moment, the group of high-level survivors on Sangji Star, who were originally calm and confident without the slightest bit of worry, all subconsciously had their hearts in their throats. As universe-grade powerhouses, their spirit senses had long penetrated the atmosphere and had been closely watching the situation outside Sangji Star. Although everyone was certain that their master could return at any time, the invading fleet had already sent out 2 warnings through divine sense transmissions. Now, an undying old monster had already rushed out of the battleship out of shame and anger, rushing to attack the atmosphere of Mulberry Star. In the next moment, the other party only needed to take a step to pass through the atmosphere of this planet and enter the interior of the planet. At that time, a bloody massacre would definitely happen immediately. This immortal realm old monster was obviously very angry. Now that he had come in anger, if he didn't kill, would he be able to chat? As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the high-level members of the various tribes on Sangji Star, who were using their spirit senses to observe the situation outside the atmosphere, suddenly became worried. Although this immortal realm old monster would definitely be held accountable by the master and wouldn't have a good end, before the master returned, if this person really stepped into Sangji Star, rivers of blood would flow and their clansmen would be killed. This was obviously unavoidable. At this moment, dozens of core high-level half-step immortal realm experts of the various tribes on Sangji Star had cold eyes. Without any agreement, all of them subconsciously wanted to rush out of the atmosphere and stop the other party outside. Although a bloody battle would definitely break out if they did so, they had no other choice for the survival of their clansmen. Furthermore, if they chose to be cowards, once the master returned, they wouldn't be able to escape punishment for this matter either. Roar! Almost at the same time, just as these dozens of Universe 9th grade half-step immortal realm experts were about to rush out of the atmosphere, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the end of the void far to the right of Sangji Star without warning. It was just a roar, and perhaps it was still tens of millions of miles away in the void. However, at this moment, the entire boundless starry sky clearly trembled slightly. The mulberry star beneath his feet seemed to have been blown away by an invisible galactic hurricane. The entire planet shook a few times in the void. The 3-clawed serpent dragon, who was striding into Sangji Star's atmosphere, trembled violently at this moment. After trembling violently, It subconsciously followed the sound to the end of the void far to the right and looked into the distance. It even exclaimed in surprise, as though it was a conditioned reflex. This aura. Regal immortal realm? Heavens! Chapter 42:26. The boundless bestowment imparted power in his body, made Yixian extremely excited. It wasn't until he raised his head and let out a wild roar that the surging emotions in his chest were mostly vented and his mind calmed down. Yixian subconsciously spread out the terrifying divine sense of the titled king realm, and quickly swept through the void of the universe within 100 million kilometers. In an instant he found out everything that was happening around Mulberry Star, which was tens of millions of kilometers away. Are they finally here? The leading army is actually the allied army of the 9 great races of the second universe. This is exactly what I want. With a flash of light in his eyes, Yixian disappeared with a thought. Today, not only had he activated the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body, but he had also used the 6th transformation of the demon ape 9 transformation bloodline ability. Within the giant true body of 10 million feet, the terrifying power of the Emperor Immortal Level 1 surged. Tens of millions of miles with just a flash he had already flashed. Of course, considering that it was not a good time to reveal his true identity, when Yixian stepped forward, he had already retracted the skeleton body and the black fog body in the 3-headed 6-armed demon ape true body, leaving only the flesh body. He also made some small changes to reveal his appearance. It was like a star berserk ape. In the next moment, his figure crossed tens of millions of miles of space and appeared in an empty space only a few million miles away from Sangji Star. Although it came silently without any warning at this moment, whether it was the 12 tribes on Sangji Star, the tens of millions of remnant experts of all sizes, or the countless stars in the hundreds of millions of battleships of the 3 camps outside the planet's atmosphere, they were all stepping into the atmosphere of Sangji Star. The 3-clawed flood dragon that wanted to enter the planet's atmosphere and start a massacre. In the void within a radius of 10 million miles, all the breathing life forms subconsciously cast their gazes at Yixian because of an inexplicable fear in their hearts. His body was tens of millions of feet tall, his eyes gleaming coldly. Although the aura within his body was restrained, it still gave people a feeling that he could destroy the world. At this moment, Yixian's invincible aura of the Star Berserk ape was incomparably clear, and almost eternally engraved in everyone's hearts. The 3-clawed flood dragon's reaction was the fastest. As his body trembled violently, he subconsciously exclaimed on the spot, "This aura! An Emperor-level undying? My God! Big brother, don't be impulsive. This is a misunderstanding." Almost in the next instant, in the universe void a million kilometers away from Mulberry Star, within the hundreds of millions of starships of the 3 camps that had only arrived less than 2 hours ago, cries of despair rang out from all over the place. Emperor level? It's actually an Emperor level undying. It's over this time. No wonder these indigenous survivors are laughing so strangely. They are completely fearless. To think we treated them like idiots. The ones with brains are clearly us, okay? A group of normal undyings with over 100 million battleships actually dared to attack an Emperor-level undying's life star. Let's flee, there's no suspense. Not only is he an Emperor-level undying, but he's also a Star Berserk ape. This kind of bloodline has the most violent temperament, it's completely unreasonable. If we don't flee now, we will definitely die here today. What the hell? Any random warrior that jumped out is an Emperor-level undying. How are we supposed to live? Let's flee. Rumble. Rumble. Along with these exclamations, the countless battleships of the 3 camps instantly unleashed their full power. Without hesitation, they turned around and rushed toward the dim light curtain behind them. These hundreds of millions of battleships of various types had only arrived in this strange starry sky for less than 2 hours. Except for the 3-clawed flood dragon, everyone else had not even had the time to step out of the battleship under their feet and experience the atmosphere of this starry sky. At this time it was as if they had lost their home. Like dogs, they hurriedly turned around and tried to flee. Today none of you should even think about escaping. Facing all of this, Yixian's eyes were incomparably cold. Before he could finish speaking, his enormous and terrifying body of a violent ape had already disappeared from the spot. In the next instant, when his figure appeared once more, He was shockingly over 50,000 kilometers away. He crossed his arms and stood boldly in front of the dim light barrier that led to the gloomy world, and he obstructed the path of escape of everyone. Seeing this scene, countless battleships that were fleeing from all directions suddenly stopped in midair. There was an Emperor-level Undying blocking their way. Even though his huge body was nothing compared to the dim light screen, there was still more space on both sides of his body. The gap was enough for an entire fleet to pass through. However, none of the battleships dared to charge forward. That would be no different from sending themselves to their deaths. After a short period of silence within the fleets of the three camps, a few of the Undyings began to roar madly. With the path ahead blocked, they couldn't leave this damned foreign space. If they stayed behind and faced an Emperor-level Undying, the only thing waiting for them was death. There was no other possibility. Since they were already dead, there was no chance of survival if they stayed behind. Charging into the dim light screen would give them a chance to escape and return alive. For this chance, all the Undyings gave it their all. Attack! All ships immediately attack. No matter what, we have to blast this space ape away. Otherwise, if we stay here, we will definitely die. My God. If I knew there was an Emperor-level Undying here, I wouldn't have come even if you beat me to death. Rumble. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Following the roars of the Undying old freaks, the fleet commanders below did not hesitate and immediately gave the order to activate the cannons and launch an attack. In an instant, countless different-sized energy beams shot out from all directions. It was as though they were free, covering the skies and land as they shot towards the huge space ape. Seeing this, Yi Xian was enraged. With his current cultivation base and the boundless blood and chi of his gigantic true form, the energy beams of ordinary battleship cannons could no longer harm him, unless they were the energy beams of the antimatter death ray cannons of the fortresses. However, among the more than 100 million battleships of the three great factions, although there were quite a few strongholds of varying sizes, they were only around 20%. Moreover, they were scattered throughout the vast void in front of them. With Yi Xian's strength, there was no question at all about avoiding these scattered antimatter death beam cannons. Problem. In a flash, he had already flashed out. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of a fleet, raising his fist and punching. Pung. Chapter 42-27. As the battleship exploded, the other weaker existences, even universe-grade powerhouses, were unable to escape. Their bodies were either torn apart by the explosion of the battleship or blasted into a bloody mist by the terrifying impact of Yi Xian's punch. More than 100 battleships of various types exploded, leaving only 3 survivors. These 3 fellows were all immortal old monsters from the Green Rock race, one of the 9 great races of the Second Universe. These 100 battleships all belonged to the Green Rock race of the 9-race alliance in the Second Universe. One of the large fortresses was the central flagship of the Green Rock Army. Yi Xian had deliberately targeted this side and attacked. The hundreds of millions of battleships around him had all fired at the command of the immortal old monsters of various races. If he wanted to stop all this, he had to start with the immortal old monsters. However, even he had not expected that the central flagship fortress he had targeted would actually belong to the Green Rock race of the Second Universe. Speaking of which, this race did not have a good relationship with Yi Xian back then. In fact, among the top 10 races of the Second Universe besides the Dark Turtle race which had already been sealed, the other 9 races were all like this. They were all Yi Xian's enemies. Although Yi Xian had later become the Star Master of the Sky River Star, their relationship had eased on the surface. However, judging from the fact that the races of the Second Universe had sealed off the wormhole and prevented the powerhouses of other races and powers from entering the Second Universe, it was obvious that this group of fellows was still the same as before. Everyone was just at peace on the surface. In private, they still had their own schemes. As such, Yi Xian naturally had nothing to be afraid of. He did not feel any psychological pressure at all. At this moment, the 3 immortal old monsters of the Green Rock race had just fallen out of the central flagship fortress that had exploded into a fireball. Their expressions changed drastically as they begged Yi Xian for mercy. Big boss, don't be impulsive. Yes, let's talk nicely. Impulsiveness is the devil. Misunderstanding, this is definitely a King misunderstanding. As they begged for mercy, the 3 fellows retreated quickly. Whether it was their words or their actions, They were all trying to fool Yi Xian. "You three old fellows, do you think I am as stupid as you?" Yi Xian was furious. He could not be bothered to talk nonsense with these three fellows. The reason he had attacked was to make an example out of them. If these three old fellows had been honest, it would have been fine. However, now that they wanted to fool him, there was no need to be polite. Boom! Bang bang bang! As the violent star ape punched out, the three green rock race's undying old monsters who were retreating quickly exploded into 3 clouds of blood mist. They were killed in the blink of an eye. "If you dare to attack me or escape to escape, this will be your fate." Yi Xian's Yez's is the immortal old ancestor of the immortal old monster, to his to immortal to kill. At the same time, the 3 immortal old monsters of the green rock race were sucked into his body and sent into the farmer god cauldron in his undying world. He did not want to reveal his identity as Yi Xian. Therefore, not only could he not reveal his ancient ape demon form, he could not even summon the farmer god cauldron. Fortunately, he could absorb the blood mist into his body and send it into the farmer god cauldron to condense the blood essence. The result was the same, so there was nothing wrong with it. As he finished speaking, the 3 immortal old monsters were condensed into 3 immortal old blood essences in the farmer god cauldron in his undying world. Yi Xian kept them in the cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. He would use them to refine the level 22 pill in the future, or when he was in seclusion to break through. At this moment, as Yi Xian's thunderous attack destroyed more than 100 different types of battleships, followed by another punch that killed the 3 powerful immortal old monsters, the surrounding battleships that were firing in unison suddenly stopped as if they had agreed to it. Following that, faint sounds of breaking through the air could be heard. One figure after another rushed out from the central flagship strongholds of the various battleships. They hesitated and hesitated as they slowly flew towards Yi Xian. At a glance, there were a total of 62 such figures, and they were all immortal old monsters. These fellows clearly understood the situation. They knew that it was impossible to create chaos and escape from such a powerful immortal emperor. Although they had a lot of people, a total of 62 immortal emperors, the other party had killed 3 of them with just 1 punch. Even if they killed all of them, it would only take a few more punches. If that was the case, they might as well give in temporarily and think of a way to escape in the future. After all, since this galactic berserk ape only asked for all the battleships to cease fire and not allow anyone to escape and did not directly charge into the fleet and attack without restraint, it meant that its purpose was very likely not to kill everyone. If that was the case, there was room for negotiation. "Why are you not running anymore?" Seeing that the 62 immortal realm old monsters had all arrived in front of them one after another, they were divided into several groups and gathered in the air in front of them, maintaining a safe distance. All of their faces were filled with vigilance. Yi Xian immediately laughed sinisterly. Towards this, the group of immortal emperors were all bitter. Some sighed, some were speechless. Although no one said anything, they all shook their heads. Obviously, this was a sign that they had accepted their fate. At least on the surface, they had surrendered and did not dare to talk about escaping. Yi Xian was quite satisfied with this kind of performance. He immediately nodded his head, raised his hand and pointed around. "Since you're not escaping, then from now on all of you, including all of the warships behind you, as well as all of the lives within the warships, all of you have been captured by this king." Captives. The group of immortal old monsters stared at each other, their faces showing strange expressions. They naturally understood the meaning behind Yi Xian's words. But, a powerful emperor level undying, why would he capture them? Even though there were quite a number of immortal emperors, over 60 of them, there was not a single immortal emperor. They could not even take a few punches from him. And even though the space battleships behind them were more in number, over 100 million compared to an immortal emperor, they were obviously not enough. At this moment, the 62 immortal emperors were all stunned. They couldn't understand what Yi Xian's goal was. From now on, all the battleships will be reorganized into 10 small legions. When these 10 legions are combined, they will be this king's captive legion.